Welcome back to Jensen TV. I am here with the one, the only, Gary Jackson Moorhead. How's that for an intro?
I guess I am the one and only. I don't know of anybody else like me. So thank
Yeah, I
you.
guess you're right. Yeah,
Dude, well, we've only spoken literally two full paragraphs to each other. And
I think that's
um,
about it. So we're
yeah,
going in cold, bud. We're going in
yeah,
cold.
going in cold, just so everybody
We
knows.
don't even know if we like each other yet. So this interview could go really south.
It could, or go very north.
I'm
Oh,
hoping for the latter.
yeah, no, of course. Me too. Me too.
Um, so let's just start it out. It's a good practice to introduce the guest as someone has never met you before. So, if you wanted to just introduce yourself, who you are, what you did in terms of Scientology, or just basically how you got into Scientology and what your position was there. Could be a long-winded answer based on the multiple positions you've held, but just a brief overview.
Well, I mean, contrary to normal Sea Org member standards, I didn't hold many positions except for um, uh, no more than three positions total, and the longest was my job in security.
Right.
So, yeah, I joined the Sea Organization when I was, let's see, 1966 to 1979. What's that? 13, 12 or 13? So
I'm
I
gonna take
joined
your
in
word for it.
1979 and then spent 79 to 82 in the Los Angeles area, floating around, mostly working in the building maintenance, for lack of better description, steer clear of the Scientology terminology, but helping look after the building, caring for people's laundry. I started off in the Sea Organization's term cadet organization, which is a young adult, by their definition, organized workforce. And once I graduated that, I was promptly moved over to joining the part of the Sea Organization that act as emissaries to L. Ron Hubbard, carrying out his orders and directives and programs. And from there, I was advanced over the rainbow, as they also describe it, to the secret location of the international headquarters base located in Gilman Hot Springs, California. Not
The
Hemet,
old base.
not San Jacinto, but Gilman
Yeah.
Hot Springs, San Jacinto, 19625 Highway 79, which has now been re-identified as Gilman Springs Road. And that's where I continued and ended my Sea Org career up until 1997, when I actually departed that base for the last time to embark upon my newfound freedom of life as an adult at the age 31, but of the mental and life experience understanding as it should. I found myself that you should be starting when you're 15 or 16, learning how to get a job, how life works, how to pay bills, what rent costs, and so
You went the
forth.
alternate route. You went the alternate route.
Uh, yeah, it was a rough ride, my friends, and it took me 365 days to leave, but
Really?
here I am. And I
Jeez.
left, I was taken off as a security chief, but I was in security. I arrived at the base in 1982. And like I said, I was taken off my post as security chief in 1996, spring, summer of 1996. And I was put on as a security chief in 1990. So I held that position for the last six years I was there. So, and you know, as morbid as it may sound, I was proud of my success. Is what I achieved uh, when I was mentally believing that I was actually helping people, only to then shake hands with the reality that I was actually handing people over that I believed I was getting back, bringing back, and putting them into the hands of people that I believe were actually helping them, but when in fact it turned out that they weren't helping him, and that was part of my wake up. But anyways, that's just a short
Yeah.
little ride of me and myself. I grew up in Scientology through my parents through the Southern California,
Okay,
um,
so they were
starting
in.
starting in Orange County back in the early '70s, and as far back as I can remember, I've never been able to have a conversation with my mom um, about the total history, like what happened from day one, where did Scientology start in our lives. But as far as I can remember, I grew up with it, always using these various charts of human emotional scales and doing basic Scientology technical assists, just very basic daily use stuff. And I remember as far back as I was young. So anyways, I hope that's a nutshell informative
No,
of
that's it. That's a
who I am,
nutshell.
what I want, and uh,
You said you mentioned you never had a chance to speak to your mother. Was that because you had left Scientology and she was still in, or was there another
yeah,
reason?
I mean, as
Did she
far as I
pass?
know, she's still in because I literally have
Oh,
not
geez.
spoken with her since I I partook in the uh, St. Petersburg Times, the Florida's version of the LA Times or New York Times,
Okay,
you know, significant newspaper in
sure.
Florida that basically covers anything and everything Scientology. I think they have a different, I think they're a different named news outfit now, but nonetheless, uh, Joe Child and Tom Tobin stuck their own necks out as reporters and did a multi-day front page exposure on anything and everything Scientology in this organization, and I was one of the handful of people that partook in that. And from that day forward, um, interestingly enough, when I hung up the phone with those two, of which I held a pretty hard-headed standard with them, I was not, you know, just a little bit of a side bit input from that whole thing is I was pretty much, I don't know how far are we in on using you know, cuss
I think
words at
we.
this.
I'm not even
Well,
monetized yet, so
oh,
feel
okay.
free.
Well, I really held a hard drive on not allowing those two to, if they're going to take the time, take my time to give them and tell them the truth of what I saw and only what I saw. And I'm not sensationalizing a bit of what I had to tell them, that they
Right.
weren't to then turn around and sensationalize what I was telling them. And they held true and strong to that, to the every word. They would not release any article without my clearance. And I thought that was uh, quite honorable as them as
Yeah, it's respectable.
reporters. Yeah, respectful, and uh, it gave me it gave me trust in that uh, there's a true voice out there listening to the reports and the truth about a true tragedy that is in today's world. So they did that with not only myself but my other, excuse me, very good friends, everybody that partook in that whole series. So from you know, when I hung up the phone with those two, I immediately turned around and called my sisters and my mom to let them hear it from my mouth first, so they wouldn't get told by the church what I had done, and get the church's input into their ears, and them drawing conclusions about why I did what I did. And you know, I'm glad they heard it from my mouth first. It didn't override the fact of the church basically mentally strongholding my family from being a family.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard from my mom and sisters since. I have worked my wonders because I know how to track people down.
Yeah.
I did, you know, and I don't say that out of a fear tactic to anybody listening that I track anybody and everybody down, but it is a tool and trade that I learned, the behest of Scientology, to know how to do that. And I was trying to find out where the hell my mom's at, and I eventually found her. And um, you know, it was nice to hear her voice. I only got to speak to her for like 20 minutes, and I did get a promise out of her that she would not reject my phone calls, but yet that 20 minutes was the last time I heard from her, and any ensuing phone call attempts, she would deny, and I just haven't heard from her since. So that's just,
they were listening.
huh?
They were listening. They were monitoring that phone call. I
Oh,
bet.
I'm sure. It's just I'm trying to
You had
shake
to
hands with
play
my
nice.
actual mom. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think they just had to play nice on the phone for that one.
well, yeah, and the fact that human beings are, I don't know, it's such a screwed up concept, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So that's the
Scientology.
nutshell. Here I am. I'm living a good life, and been doing it all on my own ever since. And somehow you found me and sought me out. I'm still like honorably. I don't know. What do I say? I'm
You're
just
still
me.
very sought out for
I'm just
fans
me,
of the
my friend.
SBT interview. In the SBTV community, you're very sought out as someone to be interviewed.
Well, I'm truly proud to be part of this little newfound SPTV that kind of created itself, where a lot of voices can be heard. And more importantly, I feel I can come to help other people. And that's really, I feel I have found that what I have to say or answers to questions people have is very helpful. And if there's one person I can help, then the time is worth it. So
I think if that was your goal, Jackson, you've definitely succeeded, because I know a lot of people who have commented that they got a lot out of your interviews. They enjoy hearing from you. So I mean,
yeah, I know
you're
I haven't
definitely
done
accomplishing
enough.
that.
Yeah.
So one thing today in this little interview here, my earbud's falling out, is I'd like to talk a little bit about security and your job as the security chief there.
Okay.
You spoke with Mark the other day, I believe it was Mark and Claire, about, well, I think you were in the chat and they were going over the multiple security
yeah, Mark had
things that were around the base.
Cool graphic map of the base.
Wasn't that neat?
Oh yeah, he did a great job on that. It was actually really
my
impressive.
favorite part was the motorcycle scooting around. I liked that part.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I used to wonder about that happening, and that was when I had a live guard up on the hill.
I was just gonna say, did you ever think that
diverse
there was a possibility that someone would make a
they would
diversion?
shake the fence at one end? Oh yeah, that was I brought that to the surface to the guards at the time, that's how easily we could get played. Yeah. So that was even more of an importance of having an alert guard up on the hill in the what we called the eagle position, just because an eagle, soaring overlooking, it was a position on our property in which it could be an elevated view.
Sniper.
Yeah, what people have turned it into being a sniper.
Right. I'm sure there wasn't
bullshit
a guy with a gun
statement.
there.
Never once, at least while I was there. There was never ever. I mean, I will say this, that just in terms of the word sniper, how that ever crossed my lips or became a topic of discussion within security or with any security related people at the Int base. Right. There was one time that we possessed 2 H&K 91 assault rifles. If anybody wants to ever Google an HK 91 assault rifle, it's a .308 caliber semi-automatic assault rifle. We possessed 2 of those. Those were purchased by a gentleman at one time named Rick Asneran. Why we needed to have those, I don't know, and where the directive was, but they were 2 rifles in addition to other firearms that we possessed. But it's only human to possess firearms for ultimate protection. So we didn't possess firearms outside of it, because even L. Ron Hubbard, I saw the written documents that he had no interest in guards or security personnel carrying firearms, because his intention is not to have dead bodies or injured bodies lying around, but
that would be a pretty big flap, I believe.
Well, yeah, and he wasn't even, I thought that the statement by Hubbard was genuine in that if we can't handle it with our own technology, then what good does resolving in a situation with guns result in anyway? So keep it to the technical use of Scientology ethics and administration to resolve. Yeah, is that that's an HK91? We also
Is
had
that what you? Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. We had bipods at the end there, little tripods, to hold the end of the gun. That's exactly it. That's an HK91. We had two of
And where
those.
and where were these stored?
They were in our security office, in our gun
Okay.
cabinets under lock and key, and only certain
Never
guards.
brought out. Never brought out for protesters. That's just like a
No, no,
scare
no, no,
tactic.
no, no, no. The
Sure.
only time during my duration in security and that we possess those, we only brought them out on Sea Org Day when the rifle range would be used, and I'd go exercise the guns because that's what you do. You just can't let them sit around.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we would
Like a
have some
car,
fun
you
with those.
gotta.
Yeah, we would have some fun with those and go empty a few rounds through each gun, and it was a blast shooting them. I'll tell you that.
Oh,
I
I
actually
bet.
loved shooting them, but never once was there ever this Rambo-ish, whatever crazed desire to be in possession of some heavy. It was just anybody who owns firearms, there is a recreational desire and fun with using such things, and that's
Sure.
the way I took it. And yet we were also trained on the handling of. We also had 45 caliber pistols, and we have 12 gauge shotguns. So we did do training with them. But back to the sniper thing, those two HK91s, the California laws changed on possession of assault rifles,
This
and
was
those two.
semi or auto.
I'm sorry.
This was semi-automatic or auto.
Semi to auto, yeah. These guns were
But
semi. They were not
they
auto.
were semi.
Yeah,
You
yeah. No,
probably
no, no.
easily converted to
They,
auto, though, right?
yeah, there was. Believe me, I was aware of the fact of how easy they were to convert. That would have
Yeah.
been a crazy move. Crazy move. I would not have allowed it in my capacity at all. But I'm telling all this detail about the guns to help hopefully put to rest this misunderstood, well beyond misunderstood idea that there was ever a
Sniper
sniper's
test.
nest,
Sure,
at
sure.
least during my tenure and involvement in security at the in base.
So that position obviously had purpose. I
Well,
mean,
it
was
did
there
in
a
terms of
tunnel to up there?
it had an instant eyes put on any alarms that were around the property. But just to quickly finish on the guns, I'm not going to draw it out, but
No,
I
no,
just want
no.
to finish it. Because the laws change on possession of those, I sold them to two gentlemen in Texas. From the money from that, it was suggested by one of our local PIs, John Gaw, that we invest in a sniper rifle, a high caliber 308 caliber, law enforcement grade, and it was exactly what I even think today with the floating barrel type, with the high power, expensive optic and premium rounds sniper rifle, which is basically what it is.
Yeah.
It's a bolt action, a 308 caliber sniper rifle. Now the purpose of that is the ultimate. We can sit in the shadows on the downslope side of the mountain and protect ourselves from anybody coming down the mountain to invade the property, for lack of better description. But that was the whole intention, and I had that under electronically monitored, secured, locked location that only at the time 4 people knew of where it was located, and 2 of those people were in security and 2 of those were in RTC. One of those that had access to it would have to require a key, and that key would only be obtained through me. So I had these layers of access to it to control ultimately the uncontrolled decision making under such a stressful event. It would ultimately, I put myself in a position to come down to I'd be the only one that here's the
So
key.
you said kept for an invasion type purpose.
Well, potential, yeah, just that ultimate, because we did have.
What do you think what do you think an example of that ultimate would be? Where you think, obviously when you bring out a weapon, deadly force is involved. You're not.
All I could believe is what I was frickin' told of the concerns of the external threats that the
Mhm.
church had out there. I was never given full details, but I was told that the threats are real, Jackson. And I was also tested a few times. I almost ended up actually killing another human being because the test uh, was allowed to be pushed to the point that I was ultimately found myself with the safety off, my finger on the trigger, counting 1 to the head, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, 2 to the chest, as I was trained, as this person that was approaching me closer and closer. I got to tell you,
And this was some type of drill?
it was turned out up until the point that I found out it was a drill. I did not know it was a drill. I thought it was a true, honest threat.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
uh, you know, when you're protecting the ultimate, what you feel is the ultimate, I mean, I guess the only thing that can,
Speaking of David Miscavige, you mean?
yeah, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
you're a true believer and you're
Sure.
there to do such a committed job. You believe whatever. It just, it's, yeah,
I could,
hindsight now says what the frickety frack was I
what
thinking,
was
but
I fucking thinking? Yeah, I get
yeah, but I
it.
do know what I was thinking at that time is
Sure.
this is that moment that I jump in front and take the bullet to protect who I'm here to protect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's some. You were basically the last. I don't know. The Secret Service. I mean, as
Well,
chief of
that's the
security. Oh,
attitude. That's the approach. That's what. Excuse me, that came on, son. That was the ultimate increased goal that security was being turned into because of how trusted we became, at least at the Ant base, on how we're able to keep a quiet, secure environment, distraction free to the staff, and uh, you know, it's just a series of things became in play that we created this ultimate secure environment, and that's what I surmise it to. Anyway, so that sniper rifle, like I said, ended up. It's most likely still in their possession, I would assume, because well, actually, Dave's not there much anymore, but
right.
they didn't have any legal reason to sell it, so I'm sure they're still in possession of it, along as
Mhm.
with all the other guns. But you know, with time deteriorates stuff, and as long as they're doing good maintenance on those things,
Exactly.
would require them to uphold their integrity. So it's up to them and how well they do it. I'm going to suspect at this point there's not much intelligent people around to realize the asset maintenance required on such assets and preventative maintenance, that they're probably not in any workable condition. So,
Yeah.
but that was up until 96 when I was removed as security chief. So since then, they could do whatever. I do know that they've lessened the amount of physical security that's on duty at any given time down to the bare minimum, such as a guard at a gate, 1 roving guard, and the rest is covered by expensive electronic equipment. And there
Which
you
of
have
which
it.
we're gonna get into. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
most is
96 was such a long time ago. Yet you did have some pretty advanced security.
did
What do
have,
you
they
call
still
it?
have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You did have some advanced security in 96. So moving forward to what we're in 2023, I can only imagine the upgrades that,
Yeah, I can
have
also
been
tell you this
possible.
little interesting tidbit that when I met with the FBI back in 2006, I don't know, sometime in the mid 2000s, when I walked into their office, I genuinely found myself humored at their level of security. They had access keypads that we already had in use, and I already learned how to diffuse, and they were scrambled keypads that
Hmm.
you hit them, and it looked like a regular keypad, but the numbers always scrambled every time. I don't know if you're
Sure.
familiar with those, but
No, yeah.
they're called scrambling keypads. And
Okay.
so even if someone from a distance were to watch your finger maneuvers, you know, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pound star,
Right.
they could just simply watch your motions and capture the code. Well, in this case, it scrambles the keypad, so it's the pattern's never the same. Even though, so they had that, their shredding machines, their types of locks on their doors. Yeah, I just was sat with the agents and I was like, you know, this stuff is comical to me because we've gone, you know, the church has got a more serious approach in discovery of much more technical stuff. It was actually, I thought it was odd that I felt that I was embarrassing them by bringing it up. It was and they were like, well,
Well,
that's the kind of stuff we want to know, Jackson. So I
yeah.
downloaded on them the levels of stuff that I was involved with and knew of and helped install and helped develop and the whole 9 yards. So
I was going to ask the basis of this FBI conversation. Was it more on the abuses of Scientology, or were
everything.
they more focused on? So I guess they did have a focus on, hey, what kind of security are we getting ourselves into if we were to potentially go into the int base?
Well, to disabuse the question of whether they were or potential, there certainly was a plan,
Yeah.
and there was a handful of people that are going to be involved, just out of respect of that agency's plans. I don't want I don't think it's right to discuss those
No.
kind of details, but I can tell you this that for lack of better explanation, there was going to be a fun little party had, and so they asked me to answer tons of questions, and a lot of it had to do about the details of the security system and also my witnessing and understanding of the human trafficking and physical abuses
Sure.
that I was aware of over my tenure as not only as a Sea Org member, but more importantly as a security officer or ultimately as a security chief.
Now, do you think it ultimately came down the inaction on the FBI, and this is just speculation of what I've heard, is that say they were to go in there, um, you'd have the Sea Org individuals saying, "No, I want it to be here," or I'm willing to be in this hole here eating rice and beans. So that
Um,
would sort of hinder their case, or is that why they maybe didn't?
well,
I mean,
as
maybe
it,
they did something behind the scenes I don't know about, and
yeah,
if
I
they
don't know
did,
what
and
their
you're
plan
privy to
was.
that,
Yeah, I don't know what
yeah,
their plan was to deal with that aspect of it because it was not only mentioned by myself that that was going to be at play, but many of my other cohorts that the
sure,
FBI interviewed. All it takes is for Dave Miscavige to serve up a New York cheesecake for dessert once a month or once a year, and everybody would be sold as, see, things can't be that bad if we were given this
this is
special
not me.
dessert. It's that easy to manipulate a cult
Ugh,
member's mind and to
yep,
sell them on staying. It truly is that
this is
simple. You could pay
bonus
them
or
once. Yeah.
something.
So um, that is part of the challenge, and it's kind of hard on a human level to. You can't force somebody against what they're saying, but they're also not aware that they're. Excuse me.
While Jackson takes a sip real quick, I'm just want to bring up. I'm starring questions that I can obviously see in the chat. If you do have a question for Jackson or I, just put like the 3 question marks before the question, or just write question before, so it's easy for me to find it in the scrolling. Jackson, I don't
I'm.
think you're gonna mind answering a couple questions at the end, right?
Oh no, not at all. I'm sorry. I'm just getting over a mild annual uh, cold, so
But
my
I'm saying
cough
at
is.
the end, you don't mind answering a couple
Oh
questions
no,
if I start some. Okay,
no,
good.
no, 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 not at all.
Okay. So, I'm gonna go to my little cheat sheet of questions I brought up here. Let's see.
I don't know.
One of the
How
things
many people do we have in this? Out of curiosity.
we have 68 people watching right now.
Okay, well, there's 68
Yeah.
people. Hello.
Hello to everyone. I was sort of lacking in putting up people saying hello, but there's Bear's mom, Jenny
Jenny
Wong,
Wong, good morning. Lulu
Lulu Baru.
Baru. That's a beautiful name. Wow.
That is a beautiful name.
Oh, wow. Hey,
Reminds
everyone.
me of an MLM scam, but
What is that? Is that a license plate that says? Yeah, it does.
on the back there.
Lulu Baru. That's a license plate, isn't it?
My screen is so small because I'm trying to get
I just
you
love
and
how
you
creative
here.
people are.
Oh yeah, so the names are ridiculous. Poet's in here. I'm sure you've seen Poet before.
Mr. Lucas, Cedar
Yeah,
Duval, good evening.
yeah. Cedar Duval over here, and Japan made a note before when you were talking about
Tampa Bay Times.
newspaper.
That's right. I'm
They
so
are now
sorry.
the Tampa Bay Times now. Yeah,
Yeah.
the St. Pete's one. So
But yeah.
that's just that. And one more person said, well, I'm sure more did. I don't know if you know Matt Elliott.
Matt Elliott. Yes, I
TV
do.
Canada.
Well, I just know of him as a
As a chatter.
SPT. Yeah. SPT family, which is how I like to refer to it because that's what we've become.
Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, here we go. Clearwater Chad. Hey, Clearwater Chad.
Clearwater Chad. Yo,
Sure,
my
you know
friend.
him.
He is one
Sure,
cool
you know
cat.
him. Juliana Bittencourt.
Juliana. Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
here's a new one of my favorite channels.
On a cow print car. Yeah, that's what I thought it was, that license plate.
Oh, that's how that was?
Yeah.
Wow. Echoplex Media is a, I guess, alt media, I guess you could call it, intellectual dark web channel where they riff on popular culture, alt-right culture, stuff like that. That's what I'm gathering from the episodes I've seen. But
okay,
they're really good. You could find them over at Echoplex Media. So just a little shout out to them. Okay, so let's get back to this. Prior to going live, we spoke about the multiple things that were placed in the base to keep not only people out of the base, but I think more importantly, people into the base, right?
Well, it eventually was transitioned into that once we realized that, at least the way I came to understand the transition of understanding the purpose of the security system, which when I first arrived at that base in 1982, there was not a genuine security system in place, as specifically L. Ron Hubbard did not want one. Right. Until about $40,000+ worth recording equipment was stolen out of what was known as the greenskeeper's house, which is where the music department used to record the sound for,
that's not where Ron Miscavige did his thing, did it? Is it?
Initially, it's where he lived, believe it or not, as in a dormitory before he was married. It was called the GK house, Greenkeeper house. And it was halfway between the main compound, and there's a stretch of land is basically, if anybody's ever refers to the map, it was close to where the running track was, a circle around the big palm tree that was in the middle that we ran around circles on. It was out there it eventually was turned into the Purification Running Program Center. But anyways, that had no fence around it and stuff. So that equipment was stolen quickly. Some wrought iron fence was put up around the property and around the main entrance. Not a whole big portion of it, just centralized. And then we, with that, went fence shakers. And somehow at that time, someone came up with the idea of having underground microphones installed. And those became headaches, setting alarms off because of gophers. They would not only be burrowing around them, setting the alarms off, but they had also chewed through our wiring, which was just basically because the south side of the property was all in basically silt from the floods that happened back in the 80s. It was easy to install those, and the gophers just burrowed their way through them, and it was a constant headache trying to keep the system functioning. And then eventually all that was put in PVC piping to protect it from gophers. So a whole elaborate PVC system was put up, and lights were put on buildings that we could remotely operate just to generally light up stuff. And then in the later 80s, as the property was seriously being approached on being built out, transitioned from the old hot springs look to this new motif called the Scottish
type, right?
motif.
Yeah.
And we put new roof tiles on, painted all the buildings, blue roofs, white walls, and just kind of
that must have been a DM I mean, everything goes through DM, but that must have been
Well,
his
yeah,
decision, right?
yeah. I mean, ultimately, it had to be approved by
Ugh.
L. Ron Hubbard because at that time, the base was being built out to basically end up
Yeah, sure.
providing a place for him to come back to and securely reside at. That was our understanding and our goal, that L. Ron Hubbard was going to come back and reside, and he can continue his movie making journey and involve himself with Scientology and not be under the threat of any legal threats. That we were always informed that were real and were happening, and we had plenty of process servers and media show up at the gate and yada yada yada.
Right.
So, as that base expansion and redevelopment was taking place, came with that was the redesign of an actual functioning full-on security system around the entire perimeter, reestablishing and broadening out the actual perimeter fence, making it more open, but yet within the fence. So instead of just having, say, 10 buildings, let's get all the buildings in the main compounds, north and south side of the property, encased within the fence, but not in our face. And so it's secure 24/7, and we can monitor it. And so it was a great deal to do, was put into its design. It wasn't not only myself, but a gentleman by Kenny Siebold and Danny Dunnigan were initially two guards that were put on the design of it as a project. And they just kept failing at it. And Danny was taken off of it, and various other people were put on it. And then ultimately, it fell into my hands as it was already well into progress of being installed. And part of that was running electrical, high voltage around the entire perimeter to facilitate every 100 feet, I believe, a cluster of 1,500 watt quartz light heads. So every 100 or 150 feet, one or the two, you'll see
What
a
was the
cluster,
specs on those again?
1,500 watt quartz light, exterior lighting. They look like square boxes that basically have a fold down glass face that you can, pop in those tubular looking quartz bulbs.
Oh, jeez.
At the time, it was the best exterior lighting that you could have. That it was instant lighting. It wasn't the high pressure sodium that take a while to. Yeah, those are LED, but they look similar to that. Yes, and
And there was 4 of those.
more rectangular rather than square. But yeah, yeah. So
Wow. And those were motion censored.
they were tied into the motion sensors, and the
Okay.
sensors were fence shakers.
Right.
That were basic, simple mercury. Once the fence was rattled, this little ball of mercury would. I love cats. I just love these comments. I'm sorry. I'm
No,
a squirrel. I get
I
a
don't
squirrel
blame you.
effect when I see these wonderful, lovely people joining in on this. It still blows my mind. Yeah, Willie Weed said they're halogen. Yeah, they're halogen.
Yeah.
Quartz halogen, 1,500 watts each light. So there was 4 of them. So there was a tremendous amount of light. There was 2 of them on the quad. So imagine 4 lights positioned on a fence line. So there's 2 shining to the right and to the left down the fence line, and then 1 shining outwards and 1 shining inwards. And
That would turn it from night to day really
oh
fast.
my gosh, you should have seen when I when I got a ride in Cruz's helicopter a few times. I took the luxury of having my entire perimeter lit up so I can see it from the sky at night.
Oh,
And
yeah?
boy, it was impressive to see this dark. I mean, imagine flying overhead in an aircraft, and all of a sudden you just see these little appear to be porch lights dotting through trees and stuff, and you're looking from above, and all of a sudden, boom, you turn all the lights on in one switch, and the whole entire property was lit up. Pretty impressive.
Tell us about this ride in Cruz's helicopter. Was this basically
Oh,
for defensive? I mean,
no, no, no,
to
no.
take a look at the property and its
No,
vulnerabilities, or just for shits and giggles?
well, it was for shits and giggles that Larry Stukenbrock and I would greet Tom when he'd fly in on the helicopter. I would look after the pilot and secure the landing zone. I was
Which was where?
basically just south of the manufacturing building in a little open, clear grass landing.
Okay.
And it became the identified landing zone. And that wasn't too remote and wasn't too close, but it gave the appropriate inbound and outbound clearances for any helicopters. I kind of became familiar with the needs and how to handle that through my fire department training, through Helitac, the aircraft firefighting helicopters. You get trained on that. So, that's just basic firefighter knowledge, but I took that, and because I knew how to do it, I was assigned to it. But yeah. Okay. I am
Let's see where
impressed
this
that you have.
landing zone is.
Okay. So zoom in if you can. I don't know what that red dot, what is that red dot representing? Okay. So
I'm
south
using
side.
Bing,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Okay. No, go to your left. Go to your left. Okay. Straight.
There's
No,
the Senate
that,
Castle, right?
yeah, that's not that. Go back, cross the street from the ship. See the pool?
I see the ship. Yep, right here.
Okay. Zoom in down into that. Okay, right there. Zoom in right there where your mouse is. Keep
Gotcha.
going. Okay. Now go down. Okay, right there. Right there. That area.
Looks perfect.
That
That's
grassy area.
also the running tree.
No,
right?
it's not. No.
Okay.
Not the running tree is more to the right.
Around here, right?
Yeah, that's where
Because you can see it. You
Yeah.
can literally see.
Well, if you zoom in,
Yeah.
it depends on what time the timestamp is on this, but
I remember seeing an old Google Maps one where you could see how.
can you zoom out just a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, that building I was referring to, that little pathway there to the left,
Going down this
right
way.
there, that is where the GK building is, which is now the. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time trying to decipher what I know a lot about that I don't think is going to end up giving any more of an understanding to the viewers. But generally,
when
that's
you say
where
the GK building. What's that?
the greenskeeper. Remember, I was referring to
Oh, the groundskeeper. Yes.
why security became developed was from that initial theft.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's where the landing zone was established, and Tom would fly in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom he would stay.
Here, right?
He would either stay for the day or stay for a week or so. So whatever, the pilot would sit there for either an hour or two or the whole day, and I'd hang out with the pilot the entire time, just to keep, quote unquote, because of our escort policy. Anybody who was in it base had to have an escort, and I was the chosen one to keep good graces with the pilot, who's Tom's pilot, and yada yada yada. So Tom would gift Larice and I these random flights in the helicopter. I got 2 during the daytime and 2 during the night. And Larice and I went up for the first time, and the pilot used to be he was the same pilot that I found out later that flew the shots in the Terminator film, did all the under the bridge stuff, the aerobatic, very, very impressive resume the gentleman had. And he took us on very similar flights, like, oh my God, flights, the 5 feet. Like he would fly us through the riverbed. You have the dikes on either side, and you take us so low in the riverbed, you couldn't see out of the riverbed. We'd be just right up off the sand. And then he would just bank so hard, and you hear that blade biting that air.
Oh my God.
And then he flew us up over the mountain and all around the property, probably a 10, 15 minute free helicopter ride, and made Larice white knuckle, and she sink her nails into my arm, and it was quite the experience. But we both loved the hell out of it. And then
my only thing that would keep me sane is knowing that he flies for Tom Cruise. So you gotta expect he knows what he's doing.
Oh yeah. I didn't think twice about it. I mean, he used to get
No,
off.
I wouldn't either.
Tom, there was a company called West Coast Helicopters, because he used to give us ball caps and T-shirts. Tom would get off the plane with an armful stack of hats and shirts for me to give my guards, and thanking me for being of service to him. Whatever. It was cool. He was just a dude to me. He was a good guy. Whatever. Everyone can express their opinions, but what I have to say about him doesn't make any difference than what he really is. But at that time, hey, it was a cool factor to my job. So
Sure.
one time when we went up in there, I realized when I was up in there, it's like I radioed down and said, hey, we had this code called 19. When I asked for like a zone, there was every aspect of the security system was broken into zones. So I can go 192, and to turn the lights off, I go 110 to, if I'm out patrolling, I can have the lights turn on remotely from the guard from the main booth. So, I could go out, or I said, 19 everything box, main booth, we called it box. And, they would just hit one button and the entire lights, north, south side of the property, all would go on in one shot.
And we spoke briefly about the gopher possibly hitting him the underground microphone or potentially a fence shaker.
Yeah, we eliminated that through placing all the wiring in PVC. And,
Right.
it still didn't avoid hearing them rumble, but we didn't let the microphones be the dictator which set the alarms off. Once the fence shakers or infrareds went off, we would turn on the microphones to hear what was there. Whereas one time we used to use the sensing of the underground microphones to set the alarms off, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
We realized
But I'm saying that
what a stupid move
the
that
rover
was.
didn't shoot out to every false
No, the
alarm.
rover
You were
guard responded to every alarm.
every even false alarm.
Yeah,
So
it
you could
was an
potentially
alarm
get
to
around.
us. Yeah, and
Wow.
the whole,
That's why that distraction theory works so well.
Well, that was why it became such a concern to me, because we started having local kids come out and screw with us at night, and they would, even so much so that one time there was a group of kids that came dressed up as ninjas, like literally in black ninja outfits, with the masks and the booties and all that.
Protesters, or you think just
No,
local high school kids messing around?
just messing around with us, just because they knew they could.
Yeah.
And they were practicing their own skills. I mean, we considered it innocent. We didn't, at that time, I'm kind of glad and proud of myself that we didn't make a meal out of snacks, and saw it for what it was. It was kind of an innocent, you guys are just out here to mess around with us. Haha.
And they were trying to get the biggest reaction you could.
Yeah, of course.
And I think you did the best thing by
Yeah.
not feeding into it.
Yeah. And there was also this other time where these, I guess, group of drunken older adults, they actually went through the effort and they filled tennis balls full of black powder, wrapped them in packing tape, which is that type of tape that is fibrous.
Yeah.
It's like 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch wide. And it's not like your typical clear or beige looking packing tape, but it's packing tape that has fibers strung into it. And they would wrap the tennis ball in it, put a waterproof fuse in it, and they came out and used balloon launchers. Those one that you hold, and
Like
two
a
guys would hold
slingshot
it.
type?
Slingshot. And they would first launch a rock into the fence from a distance to set the fence shakers off that would draw the guard out. When the guard would show up, they would start launching these little bombs. It was a tennis ball full of black powder and a waterproof fuse. So when the guard would show up, they'd start bombarding my guard with these tennis balls and going kaboom, and obviously squirting a little turd or two out of their pants. The fun thing is not all of them ignited. So we were able to take some back and throw some back. I just remember it was like, wow, these guys aren't as bright as they think they are. And they were just feeding us ammunition. and I just, again, I could tell I could have made a big deal out of it. Maybe I should have, maybe I didn't, but obviously I didn't feel the need to. These guys are just out to harass us, and I dealt with harassment.
Playing into their hand, and they'd be doing it every other week.
Yeah, exactly.
You got a rise out of you.
And and I figured the more that I interacted with them, that I would send a guard. I'd have my Eagle Guard to use our infrared night vision goggles to find out where their vehicle was parked on our property, because it was very remote. So while I was engaging these individuals there to harass me, I would have a guard ready for them at their car. So I'd get there and get their license plate, and I would already be in possession of identifying them. And that was my upper hand with them. Is by the time I would get out to the fence and actually make my presence known to them that I'm trying to chase them, they would run back to the car only to find my guard already there, and they would be defeated.
Yeah.
And that would overcome the problem. And I would go, you picked a beast to battle with. You have no idea the strength and the how deep our big league attorneys are to ruin your life. So I'll either follow you back to your residence, and I would sound off to them exactly where they live, which was part of the impact, because I had it set up how I could identify, get plates running immediately. And
that was that was exactly going to be my next question we were going to cover.
Yeah. So I just built up this ability to defeat any attempt to bring upset into my safe environment that I created for my staff. I took pride in the fact these are my folks, these are my people, and I wasn't going to let simple tactics like this disrupt it. So I figured out how to defeat all these attempts to screw with us. So, and there's numerous stories from grapefruits being thrown at us and bottles and paintball guns, and how I set ourselves up to deal with all that. And I just squashed the hell out of it to the point, even to the sheriff's deputies came out, they were honored how quiet it was out there at Golden Era, and we were impressed by how effective our security system was. The shift captain at the time came out and was like enamored by it, showing off our system to them, because we also had the highway cameras, and they would contact us. Did you see this vehicle? Can you review your cameras? You see this guy left town, because Gilman Springs Road or Highway 79 was only two effective ways to leave the Hemet San Jacinto Valley. Well, there was Florida, Sanderson, and Gilman. So yeah, there was three roads. So one of the three roads out of town ran right through our property, and we had high-speed recording cameras set up along the highway in both directions.
And essentially, this was the free zone, right? This was the end of the property?
Yeah, that's where that now is a lot better designed. It used to just be a simple road that goes up into Lamb's Canyon.
Okay.
Those two highway markers, I guess they say 79 on them.
Okay. Is that over here?
Yeah, that says 79 if you zoom in, does it not? Because I think that's... Yeah, that's the new highway identifier. It was rerouted to go south on Sanderson. So yeah, and that's Gilman Springs Road there in the yellow.
And how far did you have cameras? I wouldn't say that. How far would you have them that they could zoom? On. Sure.
I don't know what I did with my foot here, but so my cameras at the time extended to across the street from the new City Castle at the time. And there was plans when I was last there to put cameras on top of the City Castle that would further extend and have a pan tilt zoom on top of there that it would allow us.
Mark confirmed that those were put in place.
That was that when I left, I was still in the throes of finalizing the security systems for the new buildings yet to be built or were in the process of being built, and the castle was in the process of being built when I was leaving.
And this is what, a 4-story building?
Yeah, approximately. It's a big sound recording studio. It's quite large.
So you throw a camera up top there, a high def camera, 4K camera. You got some distance. I mean, especially with whatever lens you got. Sure,
you got some coverage of some great coverage of some real estate there. So again, that was the idea, the willingness to spend the money to set up such things in lieu of personnel and high-end equipment. So I hope everything I just said made some sense to everybody.
Oh, no, it did. If it made sense to me, it's going to make sense to the majority of the people here.
Okay. And I hope I don't oddly sound proud of such system in that I was very proud of what I had accomplished when I was there, because it was very effective, and it actually made my job, with the tremendous amount of demands that I had, a lot easier by having that system installed.
Sure.
considering what I was informed of, how many threats existed outside of those fences. So
Were
I
you
took
were you
great.
having companies come to you guys with their products and trying to pitch them to you, or did you have to really go out and
Well, we
figure out
really had
what's
to
best?
initially go out. That was a different time back in the '90s. There wasn't such a hardcore soliciting like there is today, especially online. And
Right.
you know, what do they call it? The analytics and algorithms and stuff like that weren't at
Yeah.
play. It was mostly
Once
somehow
you
some,
start talking about it, it's gonna show up in your
yeah,
Google, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it was always once you sought out a dealer or a supplier, that supplier ate you up in terms of fulfilling your needs, and somehow the word would get around, and other camera producers, like we use they were Panasonic cameras, so we kind of defaulted to the equipment we already used in house, such as
Sure.
in the filming department. And yeah, we use good cameras.
Okay, getting back to the license plate readers. I don't know
Yeah.
how it was in the 90s, but today, say I were to set a license plate reader outside my house, I'd have a perfect angle. Say I put it on the pole outside. I'd have a hold had to cough there.
Yeah.
I would put it on the pole. I'd get a perfect view of the license plate. Um, but from there, that license plate info, as far as I know, there's no repository online where I can just type in the license plate and find the owner. I'd have to have an
Okay.
inside man at DMV or a police officer having to run that sort of information for me to
Okay.
ascertain who the license plate belonged to.
How
Am
I
I
defeated
wrong in
that
saying that?
source of information difficulty initially was, um, even with the development and installation of the security system, we did not
Mhm.
have cameras on the highway. The cameras facing the highway and documenting our ability, or their ability, to document any and all vehicles that travel to and fro, either westbound or eastbound on Highway Gilman Springs Road, was brought about through a drive-by shooting incident that we had. And this took place one night. Um, it was like, I want to say 91 or 92 ish, maybe 91 in the summer. I was at the firehouse training that night. I had just gotten
Yeah.
back, so this is around 9 o'clock or so in the evening. Um, I was still in my volunteer uniform, and I didn't really have the sharpest tool in the shed on watch up in the Eagle position at the time, only because the guy was just a little slow, and it kind of proved itself under this very intense situation that he wasn't quick to think on his own and really pay attention when the need demanded. So, anyways, I was down in the manufacturing building using the restroom. I had my pants around my ankles when I hear
Mm.
this screaming over the radio that we just had a drive-by shooting. And
And it was aimed for you guys. It wasn't.
oh no, they were actually shooting at us, and
Well,
they were shooting at the north side of the property as they were traveling from the east to the west. And right there near the main entrance by the Star of California, across the street from the main security booth. And one of our staff members, her name was Olga, was coming out of the pedestrian gate to walk across the street to the south side, and she almost got hit. And the nearby building where staff were at their nightly studies, that building took a hit, and literally where staff members were, sitting below, uh, like it was an outside patio, but the walls were raised up, but you couldn't even stand up and look over them. Just the original design, because it was a spa bathhouse at the time. But anyways, that building took hits, and there were 12 gauge bird shots. So a lot of lead was flying through the air, and anybody that could have taken a hit could have poked an eye. It wouldn't necessarily killed them, but it certainly would have maimed them. And
sure.
probably 4 or 5 shots took off. Anyways, so The scream comes over the radio. I obviously am the one that's going to get in the security vehicle and make as best effort as I could to catch up to this. To my surprise,
Was this the Rover or the SUV?
no, the Rover. I knew this was going to be more meaningful, so I instructed the guards to keep the Rover here because I didn't want to eliminate not having anybody else here and sending the Rover bike out somewhere and thus disabling my ability to respond to any other alarms.
Sure.
It was just a quick decision that I made. I felt I think it was the logical one at the time. I was
Oh,
able to
definitely.
get upstairs, back in the security truck, speed down the highway before it can get to that Gilman Springs Sanderson intersection you just showed on the map.
Right.
And that was going to be the turning point that the Eagle Guard would need to determine which direction the vehicle went. Well, my guard lost track of the taillights. He could have simply followed him, and he tracked the wrong vehicle and sent me chasing the wrong vehicle. So what led to the cameras was that incident, and the street lighting that went in with the new development. What you see now is on the highway there, the turn lanes and the planters and all that. There used to not be street lighting there in front of the main complex. The state installed that with their redesign of the highway there, and it was the what I've always called prison lighting that has got that orange, the high pressure sodium lights that it looks like a manufacturing building, but you know, it just looks orange.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
this is where I got an education on what the human eye sees and lighting and the color and the effects of what the human brain interprets to what they're seeing.
Okay.
And that orange lighting only allows you to see, I think if I remember correctly, only 30% of reality. So if you see a yellow truck, an orange truck, or something of that color scope, that spectrum, it all looks white or it all looks yellow. So you can't see exactly what it is. So what Olga saw is what she believed to be a yellow pickup truck when in fact it turned out to be white. And to my amazement, her ability to capture a mental image picture of what she saw, because we hired a sketch artist, professional police sketch artist, to come in and recreate what she saw on the license plate, and incredibly, she recognized it was a dealer's paper license plate out of the South Bay that we able to recreate. We discovered that type of pickup truck and of course this through the use of PIs, and taken the information that we would discover and feed to them and that they would also investigate. Turned out we identified who purchased a vehicle in our location area. Turned out that it was basically a local golf course that was further on Gilman Springs Road as you traveled west. I want to say Eden Hot Springs. There was another hot springs off to the west of our property on Gilman Springs Road. But it was the groundskeeper there who got drunk one night and decided to go out and shoot at our property just for farts and giggles because he was drunk. It took us about 3 to 4 weeks to discover this.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, it was flippin' impressive that we could pull a needle out of a haystack. And that was kind of part of that ever amazement as a Sea Org member, we are really good people to be able to do this, to put ethics in on the world. You can just never pull one over on us. And I, along with a number of other people, had a lot to do with that, making that happen. And it allowed us to bring a resolution to it. But a solution to how to, in the future of any future attempts, how are we going to solve this so we don't have to go through such great effort to find out who just did this? We installed these cameras on the property that were high-speed cameras. And at that time, technology wasn't as advanced as it is today. So you have to think about, how are we going to have a recording system to capture workable images of passing vehicles? Of any vehicle 24/7, 365, because of course in Sea Org standards, Sea Organization standards, it had to be perfect or nothing.
Right.
So I couldn't install cameras that can only capture enough pictures in a 2-hour period, a 10-hour period, or 23-hour period. It had to be 24, and then keep record of all that, at least what we felt comfortable, a week's worth of information in case we discovered something came up a week later, because you have to have limitations on your storage capabilities without going crazy on expenses. So we had figured out a way in which we had 24/7 recording. So we had 2 cameras in 2 different locations, documenting. So there's 4 cameras initially at play, focused on the passing traffic. 2 cameras documenting the westbound traffic, and 2 cameras documenting the eastbound traffic. Now, let's just give an example of 50 yards or 100 yards. Okay. So that's a box. If you 100 yard box of section of road. So if I had to really think this thought through. I'm reliving what I remember going through is, what am I going to do to solve this? How are we going to do this? So, if it's going to be effective, the moment something happens, I had it set up to where you can hit a button in the main booth, and it was a recording button. Even though the cameras are already recording, it would triple the speed. It would triple the frames that were being documented once that button was hit. So, instead of, imagine like a strobe light. If people are generally aware of the strobe light, you can change the speed of the strobe. Okay.
Right.
So you can have a slow strobe, blink, 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 blink. And, that's happening. I think, it was like 30 frames a second or something like that. And I can up it to like 150 frames a second. Does that make sense?
No, it does. Yeah.
So, in the need, if my incompetent guards miss something, minimally I had something to review, and hopefully of those 2 cameras facing one direction or the other, I would capture something, or we were always alert enough to always hit that button whenever we question something, and it would give us many pictures to review, and we absolutely captured. So we set up cameras with infrared lighting on it. So we didn't have to have a light on all the time, but infrared always lit up a license plate day or night, if you know how the infrared system works. But infrared so infrared, we had an infrared light at each camera. And, in case they didn't have lights on their license plate, we lit them up for them, and we can always get a picture of it. We had to take into account, towing devices on blocking license plates. So I had to get the front end of the plate and the back end of the plate. So so there's 8 cameras on either end, 4 cameras on the west side, and they're kind of pointed at each other. So you can get the front end of the plate coming in case the back was blocked by a tow hitch or something. Yeah. I had to take all that into account. So sounds complicated, but a great deal of effort was get this installed after that drive-by shooting. And that eliminated the inability to document anything going by. So it gave us a great ability to be able to capture a license plate, and then we would call OSA and go, hey, you need this plate run. But initially what I would do is I would get that license plate, and then I would call the sheriff that this just happened. They'd send a deputy out. Yeah. I had a scanner in the booth at the time. The scanners weren't so heavily encoded nowadays.
I see now.
They would run the plate over the radio. I'd get their report back to the deputy, write it down. And I would always give them a wink, and they'd give me a wink back because they knew exactly what they were doing for me. And they were there to take a report. And the next thing you know, I knock at that door. And it almost happened within minutes of the incident happening. Right. And it was very, very effective. And
that makes total sense.
You see the efforts that I went through to figure out how to do all this?
Right? Because I said a normal person is not going to be able to get, sure, you could get the equipment to gather the license plate, but to make any personal connection to a license plate, right, the way that you social engineered that, that's brilliant. That was brilliant.
Well, again,
the other plan would be to send it up to OSA, and I'm sure they have connections in some part of law
Well, of course
enforcement.
they did, but that
As a
required me to
backup.
write a purchase order,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I would
But if
always
you
get
could do
flack.
it, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it was hard
you
enough to
took
get a
care of it.
scanner purchased, but I bought a
Wow.
handheld scanner out of my own pocket, and an out of country, international, out of Canada, unrestricted scanner. I still have it to this day. It's a
Mm.
Bearcat 3000
Bearcat.
XLT,
Yeah, there you go.
and it's unrestricted.
I got mine too.
You can scan any frequency. And if you buy one in the U.S., you're restricted to certain frequency bands to scan.
I updated my firmware in a sense that it sort of unlocked.
So I was surprised that I was actually able to purchase it. I got it through
Very
customs
correct.
without getting challenged. I wasn't trying to hide nothing. It just, if I can buy it, I'm going to buy it. And they shipped it and I got it and it was unrestricted. Used to have a lot of fun at the firehouse with the by the way, because the guys were impressed. We sat right next to our firehouse is right next to a cell tower. So in between calls, you're like, Moorhead, turn on your scanner. Let's see what we can listen in on.
Oh, that's so great.
Listening to phone conversations, cell phones and stuff. So, that's just
Well,
a small example of the extreme make it go right. My pure honest effort to do good at my job effort. And, that's what I did. That's what I did. And that was all designed, as an example to protect outside interest from bringing down the inside activity. So,
well, I mean, you say that as well, but it was also
well,
the
ultimately, how we started using the security system started out with dogs, actually, in that Shelly's and Dave's dogs, when we'd have put on firework displays, the dogs would go crazy. And
oh, interesting.
Shelly's dog, Chelsea, actually escaped one day, which really infuriated her because she had one of her own staff who was having to make up the damage for something he had done, personally watch her during the fireworks show so she wouldn't freak out and comfort her. But she managed to escape, and she escaped underneath one of my gates up there by her office. And I spent a week looking for her full time,
Right.
between myself and two of her assistants and the gentleman that was watching her in the meantime. And it ultimately ended up with her coming back and just sitting at the gate waiting to be let back in. Like the dog came back, she somehow knew. It was another thing. It was
Yeah.
like, wow, freaking dogs are intelligent, man.
I thought cats were good at that.
Yeah, but so as a result of that, Shelly had me go around and button up the base of the fence. And, where chain link gates didn't match because of the terrain, I had to level out the terrain or extend the fence somehow to when you open and close it, it would hold in place and just wouldn't have a gap there for any dogs to get out. And then people, the blow rate in which people started, blow people is people who were leaving unannounced and, secretly leaving, hopping the fence and all that. As those started coming up, and they would leave. I'd go out and recover them. They get their interrogation, and it would be discovered. It would be asked, "How did you leave?" Without us
Right.
knowing about it, they would tell their interrogator, "Well, there was a section in the perimeter fence. There was a tree right there, and I just climbed up over the tree and hopped over the fence." And I would get an order, "Go down and frickin' fix that, Jackson, you dumbass." And then it progressively, we'll go figure out what other holes there are so other people can't leave. And it's transitioned into that. And it really became visible to me that it's like, wow, we're really using our own system to keep our own people in. But again, I was led to believe that these people I was chasing down, bringing back against their will, was for their own good because they were troubled souls. And even as tragic as it seemed that I was coaxing them to come back, however means verbally or physically, that they would be handed over to people who I believed were actually helping them when it turns out that they weren't helping them. And that's what
I mean,
is part of my
as soon as they were brought back to what, thrown straight to the RPF or
No,
labeled
they would
PTS?
they'd first be put under watch and isolated from the rest of the group because
Right.
it wasn't wanted that anybody know that these people actually departed, and efforts were made to bring them back and yada yada yada. I was trying to be kept
Surely
under wraps.
people gossip that
Yeah. Oh,
do
of
what?
course. The gossip wasn't big as you would find in today's world because people knew they would get in trouble for gossiping.
Yeah.
So everybody was left to their own personal interpretation, unvoiced interpretations. But that
Which
communication,
got to make it even worse. It's got to make it even worse.
Of course it does. It just makes the environment that much more tense.
Yeah.
And so the people would be brought back and interrogated, and once they made it clear that their intent to stay, only then it would be decided upon, well, you need to go through the rehabilitation project force. And they, of course, would gladly agree because yada, yada, yada. And then, of course, you had those that like, F that, I'm out of here. And they would endure months-long interrogations until the church decided it was okay for them to leave. And they would be, they would leave in and put in places that the church was happy with. So to where they can be monitored and be kept up to date on their activities, so we can watch in which before they go to the media or turn about face and attack the church. So
and they were of course labeled PTS, which was
well, they would be labeled whatever.
right? Yeah.
That was a one-on-one thing, but there was a directive by L. Ron Hubbard that was anybody who leaves the Sea Organization from the international headquarters, right, wrong, or indifferent, if you leave, you're automatically declared. So it was just another mental cult stranglehold on your life and your mental logical capacity, if that makes any sense.
I want to bring up one more thing here in terms of security on the gold base. Let me bring this up. Share screen. Now, it's commonly been confused as razor wire on the gold base, which surrounds the gold base. But Jackson, I think, as you know, it goes by the official name of. I'm sure you did plenty of research in this.
Yes.
And it's called ultra barrier. I'm just gonna try to zoom in a little bit for the audience here. Now look at this. We have spikes on. It's not very clear in that footage if there's spikes on each post going both ways, but we do know that when it was installed in gold base, that there were spikes on the inside and the outside.
Well, okay. If you were to flip that, the bigger of the picture over onto the spikes, you would see what is like, that was once a flat piece of stainless steel that was basically folded in half. And then those spikes were stamped outward like that, like an pressed machine. Mm-hmm. So what it is it's angled stainless steel, and those spikes are punched out both sides of that stainless steel, and they just by design, they point both ways.
Well, so installation guide here
to the uninformed. Yeah. See, I mean, we got hog wire. We got rolls and rolls of that steel hog wire. So yeah, you see the angle there, that diagram
down here.
You see that? Yeah. So
okay, yes.
Okay, so imagine that piece in the center. That was just a flat piece of steel, and so they first bent it to that angle and then stamped out those. It's just like a chunk. It's like if you see these modern Marvel shows and how things are made, you got these high pressure steel cutting machines that cut stuff out of steel just in one 30-ton stamp, and that's what they did with the stainless steel, and it produces these spikes, and they can do it at, I think it was 3, 6, and 8 inches. So faster ultra barrier every 24 inches with the sheet metal. Yeah. Zinc chromate screw, pan head. Yeah. So
now if you notice in the construction picture here, it has the ultra barrier, which looks to be completely set up, but the spikes are on the top and only on one side. As they were installed at gold base, they were
what do you mean on top and on only one side, like the chain link picture
there? Right here, yeah, you see where my mouse is here?
Yeah.
It's up, and then you have one pointing to the left.
Yeah.
Now, like gold base, it seemed it was this way, and crossed this way. So you
Well,
had both sides.
so that's a square surface, but if you go to that chain linked up there, you're putting on a round surface,
Okay.
and it goes both sides just by the nature of its design.
Right.
There wasn't two separate strips installed. Everything, it was one strip that they
Okay.
angled both ways.
Gotcha.
So it's just like if a wallet, you open up a wallet and it V's open.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, and it sits on top. That's all. They stamp the steel and it does that. And it's one
Now
piece
this
of
is
stainless steel. I'm probably way over explaining this, but by
no.
default, the natural installment of that faces inward and outward in one shot, as opposed to barbed wire. It's you see how barbed wire that picture there, how it's rolled to the outside to make outside entrance. You know, this chain link right there is being looked at from the outside to the
Mm-hmm.
inside, which is the inside that they're trying to protect. So it's curved
Okay.
outward to make it hard. We didn't want that. We didn't
Yeah.
want to create that kind of appearance to our perimeter
Illusion.
fence.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
So you can see how the ultra barrier is on top of that. That was in place of what's known as today's standard, the razor wire. So
Okay.
instead of that curvature, we just put it on the top rail of the chain link fence. Yeah, see how it's both ways?
Right.
That's just
Oh.
that's just the way ultra barrier is. It's
What
it's
kind of
it's
damage do you think that it would do to someone
well, I
trying
can
to
tell
cross
you the
that?
kind of damage because there was a high-speed chase once that happened where local law enforcement were chasing some bank robbers,
Mm-hmm.
and they crashed outside the G units, the east end of our property, and they
Right.
hopped our fence to seek hiding, running from the cops, and they endured getting gouged and stabbed by my ultra barrier, and it's what ultimately brought them to their knees, and we were able to turn them over to the cops, and they
Oof.
were seriously, yeah, yeah. Someone just said you look like the art. You'd look like Art the clown got you if you tried to climb over ultra barrier. Yeah, that's the whole idea. Is it doesn't. It just pokes the hell out of you, and it's those stainless steel things. They go in 3 or 4
Sure.
inches in you, and they're like little knives. I mean, as grotesque as it sounds, it just was more intimidating, low profile but highly intimidating, which is
Not
why
to
we got it.
mention you'd light up on a infrared camera.
Oh yeah, exactly. So it actually, I don't know if any staff members actually got injured such as that. I do know there was a lot of poked hands through installation of it, but it was just a highly effective, low profile. We didn't want the barbed wire appearance, the prison camp looking, surprising language, right? We didn't want it to look like in a prison camp, but that's what it turned out to be. And yeah, it certainly created some damage. I remember the cops dropping the dude's pants and his inside thighs had
I would imagine the
wounds
damage.
into
Ooh,
his thigh region and also in his
I'm not
abdomen.
good with blood.
Yeah, and the guy was in a tremendous amount of pain, but he was alive. And
Mhm.
you know, it's a morbid thought, but that's what you get for trying to jump inside Jackson's secure perimeter.
Oops,
I
wrong
mean,
spell there.
they were true criminals, is what they were, running from the
Yeah.
law. In terms of, I knew my staff knew the effectiveness of it because a lot of them joined in on our Saturday renovations to help install it. For the
Sure.
manpower, it took a great deal of manpower to install that around the entire perimeter. So, you know, it wasn't as though we had armed guards along any fence line and you were going to be shot for any attempt. It's just that was part of the security system to keep people out. And it indirectly resulted in it being a great thing used to people's advantage that I was not aware if they were using my own system to the meeting the church's needs of keeping them inside. I don't know. It's pretty effed up, to be honest with
Now,
you.
now, I've personally seen YouTube videos of security actually going as far as detaining people, essentially on sublet road or things like that.
Must be Danny Done It Again videos because
Yeah,
He was my only
probably.
guard that I had a hard on for that. The bald headed guy with a lot of teeth in his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm what I'm getting at is that I guess that wasn't too popular a thing is to actually go ahead and put hands on people.
No,
Correct? That,
that that was way out of
that
bounds.
was frowned upon.
I was
Yeah, yeah,
very well aware of the rights and wrongs and how to handle um, poorly intentioned people. The way we
sure.
saw it arriving at my gates or my fences, you just don't touch
Right.
people.
Yeah. I mean,
And
security you hear it's observe and report. I mean,
yeah,
until an extent, I mean, I'm sure there's a line that they can cross and you are able to do some sort of citizen
well,
arrest.
yeah, unless there's
But I think
physical
that's
harm.
only a felony, right?
Yeah,
You can't citizens arrest someone for a misdemeanor.
no.
Yeah.
We can
And
only
if
place them under citizen's arrest if they were truly trespassing and they did not leave our established property.
gotcha.
So, and
Gotcha.
that's right in any law of the land across the U.S. You trespass on
Sort
someone's
of
private property.
yeah, castle law or
Yeah,
something
but of course the
like
church would exercise full rights that they had on private property. So
that. And
if
probably win.
if your pinky toe is across the line and we got it confirmed the documentation, they will go the full 10 yards to
Yep.
make your life
Yep.
hell.
All right, so we covered that.
We haven't lost
Um
many people in here by chance, have we?
we're at
Oh,
67 people.
oh, still, that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
see? Yeah, it is pretty cool. I mean, a lot of people are interested in this. Okay, I got like three more questions. I mean, we're at an hour and a half. Let's try to keep it about 15 more minutes. And then
Okay.
Jackson, I'd love to be more prepared and ask a couple more questions. Maybe do this in like a week or
These things
two.
roll as they roll, my friend.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. If you're ever interested in doing it again, I have plenty of more questions, and I'm sure the audience does too.
Sure.
And actually, I'm only gonna pull up about one or two more questions of mine, and then we'll just hit the audience questions I have to start,
Okay.
and then we'll call it a day.
Okay.
Um, Another thing that was interested to me were the tunnels found underneath the facility.
Under what
Um,
facility?
uh, uh, that go essentially under the road from Gold Base.
Oh, well, there was two underground tunnels put in simply to increase the staff safety of trying to cross a very busy highway. And
Right.
so a tunnel was put in the main compound, the main centralization of the compound between Massacre Canyon or MCI, the place in which we eat or ate at,
Right.
going to the north or south. And then there was one put further up the highway that Dave exclusively wanted, basically for his own privacy. That's how it became known and understood. No one else could use the tunnel, strangely enough.
It was
Um,
his personal tunnel.
yeah. Uh, there was a lot of undertone shit like that, and it never made sense. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, the tunnel was put in, and he was the only one. And of course, his own staff could use it. But, uh, uh, my guards had the right to use it for security response, but not general base traffic.
Right.
And anyways, it was,
No, it could
I
be
could show you on the maps where both of them are, but just to understand that there's two tunnels and they're big enough that they were intended to be big enough you can have foot traffic and motorized traffic from a golf cart or a Kawasaki mule
okay.
motorized cart traveling up and down through those tunnels at any given time where there wasn't
Makes
any
sense.
harm or threat placed to anybody traveling through there. So there was footsteps, um, there was stairs on the north side leading out of that tunnel. And there was also a ramp that you could walk up and drive up and down either way, in and out of those tunnels. So yeah,
Huh?
that relieved and took away the threat that our staff had from trying to get themselves across the highway staff would end up being late to our musters after dinner because they'd be held up by how much traffic there was on the highway. And, anyways, yeah, so those were installed and they're there to this day.
Claire and Mike or Claire and Mark on their last live speaking about how they snuck out the person that blew.
Yeah.
They spoke about the intrusion of, I wouldn't say intrusion, but inspection of mail,
Oh
which
yeah, I did that
which
for
is,
years.
yeah, I guess that's to be expected. But they also mentioned some nefarious things that some security guards would get into. I mean, is there obviously there must be some truth to that, like to an extent.
Nefarious
Some people,
things?
yeah, like so. I mean, do you think anyone would have pocketed things that were meant for someone else? I
Oh
mean,
no,
they
no,
even
no,
got as far as saying that the staff tried on
no.
lingerie and stuff like. I mean, is
Well,
it
if it happened, it happened. Didn't happen on my watch, and
right, right, right?
as
I'm
long
just
as I
wondering how
was
much you
involved,
actually believe that. Yeah,
uh, I've come to not be surprised of learning new things about
yeah,
stuff that I would at one time never imagined it would have happened, only to find
exactly.
that it has happened.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's actually being either informed by an educated someone who had walked the walk.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, I was not there. But while I was there, the there was still respect applied to the mail and items we would see in the mail, both incoming and outgoing. It wasn't
Sure.
for our personal entertainment purposes, but yet, we would, of course, have humor amongst ourselves about the stuff that we would see in the mail. And, I, in myself in particular, used to, because I would sit up at a security booth and during my time that I checked the mail, I would enjoy reading Sports Illustrated, People magazine while I was on watch. And it was, I was checking the mail. And, but we definitely paid attention to not messing with people's personal lives. I
Right.
just remember that as a point of integrity. And there was one main guard who checked the mail for majority of the time, especially in his growing years. His name was Ron Cook. He was the mail checker, and he checked all
Well,
base incoming and outgoing mail. And in his absence, or in overwhelming times such as around the holidays, um, I was added to help that, or I would fill in. Only certain guards were trusted to check the mail, and I was one of them. And sometimes, like when Ron Cook, or we called him Deacon, that was his radio handle,
mhm.
um, I would fill in for him and check the mail. There was another guard, Mark Locke, used to do it too before he moved on to another part of the church. But um,
Well,
yeah,
that brings me to Liz Ferris and her attempts in reaching her father that's at Gold Base.
okay.
If she were to send a package in the mail, I mean, what's to stop him from actually receiving that? I mean, you'd think the way that you stated it, if as long as there's nothing nefarious in those items, would it be expected that he would receive it?
I can tell you this: um, the Department of Communications would be the one organizational point in which all incoming and outgoing mail would be delivered to and distributed from to all the rest of the base the staff on the property. There was a big box that would all the incoming mail would be put to, whether delivered by the US mail or it was a letter from their father down in Los Angeles at another church organization. Any and all base communications that were external, being brought in or being delivered to the outside the base, would be brought to this location and collected by one of my guards daily at a certain time. Um, and we would have to check it by a certain time and return it to the director of communications, who would then deliver it up to wherever it was going on the property. Now, um, where it went from there, I was not in control of. So I do know that there were special directions given to that director of communications of mail that when it came in, not even my guard saw it, would be taken straight up to RTC. So I do know there was one particular staff member, as an example. I will not mention a name, just out of great respect for the very good person this person was, but would get um, a yearly cut of a I don't know, how do you call it? Somebody, there was a family member who was part of a what do you call someone who's like an like somebody who works for Campbell Soup in the family tree, you know.
Um, Nepotism.
No, not well. That's something separate. I'm
That's
just
uh,
excuse me.
someone who works for Campbell Soup and the family tree. What were you saying?
They would all get a piece of the pie.
Okay.
Like I almost want to say an inheritance, but that's something that one receives after the person that made the original money moves on, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But this was more like a living inheritance. So once a year, they would this rather large check would show up in the mail,
sure.
and
He was essentially a shareholder or something
yeah,
like that.
I guess it would be a shareholder. What I did know is I didn't know, but I do know that
Trust
initially
fund.
I was
Yeah,
directed that when I do get this letter, that I'm supposed to direct it to RTC, and then eventually RTC just bypassed security altogether and uh, had the director of communications bring it up to RTC directly. So I do know that there were steps and actions. There you go, living trust fund. There could be that too. Yeah,
I probably either
be
one. I think probably works.
or dividends. Yeah, there could be dividends. There you go. See, I love the chat. Thank you, people. Such
Yeah.
beautiful people, man.
Such smart people.
I know, very helpful. God, I wish you guys can travel with me as I live my life, because I probably end up avoiding doing a lot of stupid things in my life, comically stupid, but
Mm.
and I could probably help you out too if that's fair to say. Um, but it proved to me that there was also another layer of behind the scenes. Everything wasn't what it fully appeared to be. That it just became this free for all decision making. It's like, fuck it, you know, eliminate security. We'll take the stuff. Like even mail for Dave, I couldn't check. Initially, I used to check every base staff members, and eventually, as things got more serious and more important, you know, Dave's Apple box got taller and taller, meant more importance and more security need to be paid attention to his all lines of communication. I never checked his incoming and outgoing. I'm pretty much guarantee no one else did too. So I
No, no.
do I do remember that Warren McShane and Marty used to check Dave's mail just to make sure there wasn't foolish stuff in it before it was forwarded to Dave. But they weren't looking for the stuff in the letters that I and security were looking for, were such as people trying to distract people, drawing their interest of wanting to leave, or we're going to send, the Cult Awareness Network people out to deprogram you. And,
Sure.
we'd get all that stuff. I remember letters, particularly from Artie Lerma. They were written like he wrote them with his left foot. They were really comically written in that way, I believe, out of a point just to piss people off. But he used to write to Dave Miscavige and Norman Starkey and Ray Midoff. And he was kind of one that was high on my security list, that when I would get those, I would collect those and just route them directly to the RTC reports officer or security officer. But I just remember the Artie Lerner letters for years. That guy wrote in consistently, basically, F you and this and F that and you this and that. It was just, the guy was pretty upset. But
There must have been a list.
there was a list.
High. I don't
Like,
know what you want to call it.
we called them. There were security concerns, security threats, people to look
Yeah.
out for in the mail, and
External people.
yeah, external threats, and
Yeah.
it became easy to spot them, of course.
Yeah.
But it sure, I got to
Comes
tell you,
easy
it
to
was.
spot them on YouTube.
I mean, yeah, it was interesting doing the mail. It was just, hold on a second. I got one of these scratchy coughs coming on.
I don't know. I've had them all day. Look at how good. Look at how good. You muted
Excuse
it
me,
perfect.
sorry about that. Was a mute successful?
Said you muted it perfectly.
Okay, good. You know, reliving these little details about the things I did in security was, you know, it's I can only compare it to what it'd be like firefighters reliving past incidents that they'd responded to and holy shit moments and this is and that's. And I kind of relate the same thing. I mean, it was part of my past. It's the things that I did. I actually enjoy sharing them with you folks. You guys get a chance to shake hands with the actual. I spent nowhere. I didn't travel around like Mark and Amy did, and
Right.
to a lot of the external orgs, the other Scientology organizations, during pretty much my entire time I spent in the C organization, I was at that base 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
And my position in security is unique from the rest of the IMP base staff is I got to go around and see everybody at any time throughout the entire day, 365. I got to spend time with them at their berthing. While they're at their berthing, I was there. I'd go from one organization to another organization, to the shoot crew, to the galley crew, to the people that would look after L. Ron Hubbard spaces, to the people that were recording music up in the sound studio, to people that were building the meters, all day long. That's all I did. That was my job, to basically patrol the base 24/7. And I either were doing inspections or just generally observing and looking for security weaknesses or situations that I could help with. So I'm able to bring you guys a unique look into day-to-day activities at the base. And that's even like so much of any of our listening people may know of Mitch Brisker. I got to know
Who
Mitch.
doesn't?
Yeah, I got to know Mitch very, very well. The guy had a great, incredible impression upon me as a person, to
He's
witness
like a
his
great guy.
professionalism and how humble he was and how
Yeah.
creative he was. And I was there when he was brought to the base. I was aware of the behind the scenes information as to why he was brought to the base and how he was to be handled and how he was to be treated and respected. And I just, that's just one example. I got to meet Edgar Winter and his wife, who, through my security capacity, we became friends because the guy, Edgar Winter, I don't know if you guys know, is an albino and they have a hard vision problem. And I used to
Okay.
escort him across the highway before the tunnel was brought in when he was there recording music. And he and his wife bought me a wedding gift one day and brought it up to my
Uh-huh.
booth when I was on watch, and they were congratulating me. I didn't even know how they found out, but they knew
Yeah.
enough. Edgar knew enough about me. And Edgar was just Edgar, but he was a cool cat. And
So
I
so
got to,
prior to these people arriving at the base, they obviously a security memo went around of how these people are to be treated,
there wasn't
etc.
necessarily a security memo that went around. There was just an understanding that when celebrities were there,
Yeah.
they're just, nobody took particular, you just stay focused on your task at hand. It wasn't, people would go walk and they would change their path in which they would travel to go by the music studio just to get a glimpse of Edgar or Travolta or whoever was up there recording or doing whatever they're doing. That was just considered a distraction. They were here as part of the team. It was all a team effort. So there was no star power factor involved. This is all part of what makes up what we're doing here, which is the audio visual producers of Scientology materials. Does
Right.
that make sense?
No, totally. Totally.
So yeah, I mean, I just remember all the. I mean, it just was cool. I'm not going to deny it, but I just, I mean, even when I'd be at the firehouse, San Jacinto cop on two different occasions, years apart. One time, the cop came up and told me, he goes, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but he was telling me because it was a brotherhood. He said, I pulled over Travolta last night and doing like 120 down Sanderson. And then years later, I get this other one. I pulled Cruz over the other night yeah, he was doing like 125 in his Porsche, and it was so cool. And yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, shit, you're not supposed to know, right? And he goes, yeah, I know you're not, because that security world, I mean, they weren't going to take it, but because we were a brotherhood,
Yeah.
that was my life there at the imp base. And,
Yeah.
I hope that my interacting here and telling you these kind of details,
Oh, that's amazing.
help fill in the gaps of what the back behind the curtains machine was like of Scientology, because that was the imp base, and that's where all the strings were pulled,
And
and that's where
speaking
all
of
the
that,
shit was started to be bundled up and pushed down to roll downhill that made people's
sure.
lives freaking miserable. So
And speaking of that, I have one final little question, and then we have 10 starred questions. We've been
okay,
going an hour and 45 minutes, which seems like we've only been going for an hour, Jackson. This
I
time
know,
sure
right?
flies.
It seems almost like we just started.
I'm going to ask my final question. If anyone has any more questions, ask it right now. I'll star it. We have 10 questions in the queue, and we'll sort of fly through them. And I need you to answer this honestly. Uh, did you ever show any compassion to an individual who wanted to blow and possibly turn the other cheek for them to be able to leave the int base?
I never turned a cheek because that would be violating my loyalty to the organization I was part of. I would I may have changed things up. I was not a deranged asshole when dealing with
Mm-hmm.
them. I seriously and foremost considered them a dear friend looking for help. So my interest lied in doing all I could do to help them.
Yeah.
But they also knew with that required these are the in-house procedures. Whether wicked or not, they were the in-house, the technological, the L. Ron Hubbard technology to be applied to them. They knew that was what was going to be applied. And I would uphold doing that, thinking that's the best thing for them. And
All right.
never
Okay.
once, I mean, I do remember, I'll particularly remember like Jesse Prince and Monica as an example. It really irked me inside the level of hell that Jesse and Monica were put through. They're on expressing their interest in leaving. Jesse and I and Monica and my wife and I, we were apartment mates. We all occupied the same apartment in two different rooms, and we were really, really close and had a great time. And Jesse is a really good person, and Monica is just a fabulous doll. And my wife, of course, is the most beautiful, loving person on planet Earth. But she, that was really one of my first. Well, there was numerous ones, Janice and Grady and Terry Gamboa's. Just witnessing these very good people to me just being screwed with was gut
Yeah.
wrenching. But what I did know is I didn't know, and I don't know if that was shooing me away from looking further when I had the
Sure.
ability to. But I felt that if I would start looking to, they would be questioning why am I looking in. It was just a vicious mind fuck of concern.
It seems like you have such a good community of ex-Scientologists that really love you and respect you, and even especially Mike Rinder. I mean, I heard you do. I mean, this is no secret. I think he said you do like the babysitting for him, and like
Oh
you're
yeah, I
part
mean
of the
yeah.
family there. You're part of the family.
Well yeah,
It just goes to show. I mean, I don't think in previous jobs that I worked at, I don't think the security chief would have been a tight person that I would hang out with. You know what I mean? So it just goes to show what kind of you know person you are, and just
Well,
I really really
thank you, Pete. I
appreciate that.
mean,
I'm sure they
us
do
not
too.
ever knowing each other, I guess that says something for however my stories are being conveyed. I mean, all I can tell you
Yeah.
is I'm just being 1,000% honest and not glorifying or sensationalizing my experiences or what I witnessed at all. I'm
No,
just,
no.
talking about this puts me back there in this, I guess, this weird sense. I mean, I don't think it's an effect of anything. I just, I
It
just,
doesn't re-traumatize you to an extent,
no,
does it?
no, it doesn't re-traumatize because it cleared. I mean, it's
Yeah.
easy to separate that. I mean,
Good, good.
I have no loyalty to that place because that loyalty was lost the moment they frickin' screwed me over. You know, I mean, that's just,
Yeah, of course.
I don't say that in haste, or, you know, it does upset me, but, you know, that's the life that I was part of. You know, you could say the same thing about having endured the experiences I did as a firefighter, and people could be of the opinion, I mean, that's terrible to have to experience and witness. But, you know, I was there because I loved helping people. And I responded to those calls in those traumatic incidents. I mean, I could tell you 2 incidents in the fire world that I responded that would stand the hair up on your neck and arms, your entire body for a good solid 6 weeks.
My
And
dad was a firefighter
yeah,
in
and
FDNY.
I don't say that out of disrespect for any past or current first responders, because it's happening right now. It's happened 100,000 times since we've been starting this conversation. But,
Hmm.
you know, I consciously chose to be a firefighter out of my personal desire to help people. And here I was in Scientology and asked to do the task that I was doing. And I did it with the same drive to help people, to be there for them, to give them a safe, secure working space. I wasn't there to set, there's the fence, see if you can get over it, asshole, because you
Right.
got me to go through type attitude. And I would never, never was I ever like that.
And let's remind people, as you were the security chief of the base, you also were a volunteer firefighter, correct?
Yes, because of the good, honest gracious of Shelley Miscavige, yes. But that also
Amazing.
fulfilled an
But that was
original,
also safe pointing. That was
that
also
was with the intent to safe pointing, yes. But I mean, that was
sure.
Shelley and I shared a social desire to help the local community. Mine was so happened to come about through us responding to local remote accidents on this very remote highway. People come up to our booth looking for help for somebody who rolled their vehicle down the road. We would be there as help until 911 arrived. And then eventually the fire captain said, "Hey, you guys are so excellent in being here helping people. Why don't you become a volunteer firefighter?" And I was like, ding, ding, ding. And that supported my original desire of what I wanted to do in life when I was about 7 years old. I'll never forget sitting on the corner waiting to get picked up for baseball practice and having this little moment wash over me of what I want to do in life. And that was to be a firefighter. So to have been very active, and I'm talking very active volunteer firefighter as a Sea Org member, had never been heard of up to the time that I got to do it. And up until the day I left, it was considered an external influence, and it was shut down. And there's stories to be told that I found out later of what the church did at the firehouse when I left, and that creeped the shit out of the firefighters about why they were there so eagerly looking for me. And they eventually told them that I was dead. And the fire department actually was so convinced of it that they filed my files as 6 feet under. And the day that I called, my captain couldn't believe that was my voice on the other end of the phone. But I'm Captain, this is Moorhead. Yeah,
Oh
dude,
my God.
we were told you were dead. And that was a bit of a shock. A dead man talking to a live person. As funny as that sounds, that's very real.
That's not even below them to lie to an individual.
That's what the
say,
efforts they did to kill one of the efforts they did to kill my efforts in pursuing a career, because they hated the fact when I was leaving that I was very boisterous. They said I couldn't live anywhere near 100 miles within that property. And I told them, I said, "F you, I can pop a tent outside the south perimeter fence in the riverbed, and I have the legal right to be there." And they hated that I recognized that.
Right.
And then when I left, I reactivated my volunteer firefighting, and I was on the first due engine to that property in any calls. And they freaking hated it. I can't tell you how many calls they canceled knowing that I was on. No, it's not might. It's because they kept track of me, that they knew I was there, and that we would get canceled en route. And they were always, "Why are we getting canceled?" And even one of their staff members who wrecked the security truck, who got injured, still canceled my response and signed against an AMA or a medical form that says they don't want medical help, simply because they knew I was responding.
Oh my god.
Yeah, they didn't want big bag suppressive person Jackson showing up. It's just
No.
freaking amazing. So
So
yes, back to your point.
that's in theta.
Huh?
That would be in theta
Is well, it
material
was
being used.
their own perceived, their ill fated, ill generated, crazy idea of I'm a big bad person going to come make whatever what.
Come ruin their
So
case gain or something.
yeah, so yeah. Anyways, there's still a lot to be said about all that, but
All
yeah,
right, well, we're
never.
gonna get to
No.
the start and the super chats because you actually received a $10 super sticker from Diet Coke 73, Jackson.
Woohoo! Well,
So
thank you, Diet Coke 73.
you got it.
That's beautiful.
Uh,
That's I still don't know what to do about all that, but I thank you. I'm not here for the money.
Japan of Green Gables, he said,
Can
can
you
you tell
tell?
your version of the story of when DM hired some PIs to infiltrate the base to try and pretend to kill, I think, Warren McShane?
Okay.
I don't know the story.
Okay, just keep that up, that question up. Yes, this happened in the early 90s. That unbeknownst to me, this happened twice. So unbeknownst to me, there was private investigators, a group of them. I think there was a total of 6 that were instructed by Marty and Warren McShane, mostly by Marty, but I know, and also ultimately Dave gave the direction to Marty to put the security guards to the test and the system to the test. So, and what I came to understand and was told by Warren McShane to test our loyalty.
Can we
To
say who Warren McShane is real quick?
Yeah, Warren McShane was the basically the legal director of Religious Technology Center, where he dealt with all the external legal threats and incidents
Okay.
requiring Religious Technology Center's attention, for lack of better term and for lack of my full understanding of position. But he was basically the man who was trying to take a turd and turn it into sunshine and rainbows, but always found a hard difficulty doing that. Dave's directives of how to turn it into sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
But because he had an innate ability to lie by telling the truth and by not telling the truth,
Right.
it was Dave's go-to guy. And Warren was a bit of an, excuse me, he had a bit of an intimidating demeanor about him, but nonetheless, he had some influence over his security, and I played a more significant role in his position much later. But I also knew him and his wife personally at the time. And anyways, when this happened, the first time it happened, 3 guys were sent to penetrate my perimeter on the south side of the property and on the north side. The north side geared towards closer to the proximity of Dave's office in Religious Technology Center's location, and also just anywhere on the south side in the open field to see how security responds to it. Well, I wasn't prepared to respond to 2 very indicative active alarms that weren't just general alarms, but they were giving off indications that this is live. This is an alarm that you can hear the fence shaking. It's just constantly
Right.
going,
Right.
like someone's standing there or something's happening at that zone.
It
And
wasn't just the mercury
no,
moving.
it wasn't
It
just a
was shaking.
fluke like a dog
Sure.
walking into it or the wind blowing. No, this
Yeah.
was a true indication, and on both sides. And then, of course, we use our microphones and we can hear multiple footprints out there. And it was like everything's at play. That's like, holy shit, we got something going down. I got all my guards out of bed. In that time, the first time it happened, it just, the guys hopped the fence and on both sides and they made it in. And I was defeated and I was yelled at. I wasn't taken off my job. I was really surprised. But I was given, you better shapen up and sharpen up. And, it woke me up per se to a new level of realization of how simply I could be defeated. So I kind of reevaluated things and how, just I went out and looked at different ways and this is and that's and how he responds. And like I said, it was, even though I was aware that I could be distracted at one end while a real threat happens another, I just learned how to deal with it. And, I guess I took from that I could still be entrusted at the position. So I will overcome this. And the second time it happened, between the first and second time of these two tests occurring, I was never of the belief that it was ever going to happen again. So after the first time, that was it. I didn't, I wasn't, too sharp to believe that I could be tested again so quickly.
Before we get to the second time, just one question: was it hard to get allocated more money for more systems or anything, any upgrades in security that you might need because they found those sorts of vulnerabilities?
I think I got an additional rover bike, so we can have two.
Huh?
Yeah, yeah, because it allowed me as a security chief to be an additional rover.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I was available 20. I didn't have to hold watch like the other guards did. Some guys would hold 8, 10, 12, 14, 16-hour day watches, where I never held watch as I was a security chief. I couldn't be put in a position to not be allowed to make decisions and interact in security situations, whatever. So security chief did not hold watch. I, of course, would randomly do it to give my guards a break,
Sure.
during holidays and stuff. But I think that's when I got a second rover bike. I may be wrong in that, but I do remember a change in attitude on the ability to respond to certain things. And by the second time it happened, I was more prepared to this. It's like, hey, it's happening again, but this is a lot real. We still see them outside the perimeter. They haven't breached it yet. I had defenses set up on the inside to guard against it. So when humans see another human, they tend to stop and change their activities and yada, yada, yada. But this time, these guys were a lot closer, and they were dressed facetiously, I guess you can say. They weren't wearing camouflage, but they were obviously in dark clothing to be under the cover of darkness of night. And I became face to face with them, and this time I was carrying a loaded firearm, me and another guard. And I was out confronting this individual with a dead set, I'm protecting the great descendancy to mankind's survival. And at the direction of our PIs, this also helped produce this change, as our firearms were loaded with bullets and hollow points. The first 2 rounds were bullets, and the first 2 shots out of any .45 pistol would be bullets. At a .45, it would just travel through the person, the human body, and then the third or fourth round
is going to rip
is going to rip and tear. As grotesque as this sounds, this is a real scenario on why bullets are made.
And those are legal in Cali?
Well, yeah, hollow points are legal. You can't have...
I wasn't aware of the legality.
Yeah. Anyways, whether they were legal or not, because I even remember that somehow we fell into possession of these Teflon coated ones that would pierce body armor. Those I know were sensitive, but somehow we fell into possession of those. And I was really reluctant to get caught with those in our hands. But nonetheless, part of that process of that loading of the firearms was 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, which is how we were trained on the handling of our firearms. 2 to the chest.
2 in the chest, that hollow point to the head, huh?
That's right. In an effort to give 2 chances to stop the individual before the third effort was made to completely stop the individual.
End his life. Yeah.
And I had this firearm in my hand, out in front of me, safety off, sounding that off in my head. And silently in my head, but announcing to the gentleman, stop advancing or I will shoot. Stop advancing or I will shoot. Whatever the language was, I was making it very clear. The closer you get,
it had to be very clear.
I literally had resolved as a human being, I'm about to shoot a human being. I had no there was no ounce in my
There's no
body,
qualms about that?
no qualms about it, because I was doing the job I'm asked to do.
Damn,
And
yeah.
like I said, I am at that point where I'm jumping in front of a bullet to protect those I'm here to protect.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Oh, totally. I mean, it makes sense, but of course, when we both look back at it now, like, wow, but in the position you were in, yeah, totally
The,
makes
the
sense.
the shocking thing that after all that happened, because if it wasn't for I kept taking my eyes off, and this guy was reaching out with a piece of paper that had some writing on it.
Right.
And in the area, because again, our security lights are so well lit, I eventually was like, that looks like Marty's writing. And sure enough, it was a note written by Marty saying, "This is a drill." If that
Uh,
guy hadn't been handing that out and would played along, like tried to see if he can get up and touch me, I would have
uh,
a dead man on my hands. And that it just, whatever. I'm not going to even go down that grotesque path
right,
of
right.
how I would be forced to live with that for the rest of my life. And I probably
Yeah.
would be sitting here now with an Australian accent before you, because I would have been shipped to another corner of the world
Yeah, yeah.
and hidden in
Australia,
months.
you'd be lucky.
I'd probably be lucky. And, but I was taken back by the lack of reality that when I was given the debrief, because Warren McShane was the office I was called to after that note was handed to me and everything was called off,
Sure.
that I had passed the drill, and that was the only significance, that I
Okay.
had passed the drill that time. And there was no respect given to the fact of what just went through my entire body and mental state, that I just about killed somebody. Like literally, my finger was on the trigger, safety off. I don't know how much closer you can get
Right.
to reality happening seconds later. I guess
Sure.
you can ask any police officer that happens often.
And they're put on a sort of leave after that. You know what I mean? And you were
Whatever.
granted no
I'm a
sort of
Sea Org
mental
member,
leave.
Scientologist, helping
Yep.
mankind. And
Ugh.
it's I don't think it was needed to be taken to that level to check my loyalty. It just it's something that I've been forced to live with ever since. It frickin' pisses me off, but I stood my ground. As wicked as that frickin' sounds, it's a terrible way to be fucking put through the test, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
if the
I'm glad
church wants
things.
to ever claim that didn't happen, prove to me it didn't.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, there's an ounce of doubt in my story, but what I'm telling you is 1000% the truth, that truly happened. And I can name the names, whatever. I don't even need to go down that path because it frickin' happened. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's just
All right. Let's
another
move.
level of
Let's
truth.
move on to something a little more lighthearted here. Did anyone else ever see that Paris Hilton had a scarf that made her not detectable by cameras? Wouldn't it be fun to send all of the Sea Org people new scarves?
Well,
I
Miss
might have an
Kimberly,
answer for this. Yeah, I don't think it's undetectable by cameras. I think it's more of a flash thing
yeah, it's more of a
where
lighting
the
diversion,
flash.
dispersive type
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you'll still be seen, and
You're
I
basically
don't.
managing the light cameras are capturing of an image, and that's all. I
Right.
learned about that in my whole secretive, spy camera type stuff, how to defeat certain
Right.
things. So yeah.
Hope that
Thank
cleared
you
that
so
up for
much,
you,
Kim,
Kim.
for bringing that up. It's a
Yeah,
good
hope that
point.
cleared that up. Yep. Okay, one more from Japan here. Maybe we got this. Okay, are you comfortable saying if the reason the party was canceled because of the Ninth Circuit opinion in the Headley versus Scientology?
Are you
If
comfortable
the,
saying if the reason this party was well,
what is this party reference? I'm at a
this
loop on this
party
one.
is the one organized by the FBI.
Okay.
I was just speaking code for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Hopefully to him.
Well,
Yeah.
it's for the FBI is asking for the Las Vegas Raiders to get involved. If that makes sense, that's code. Okay.
Okay. Gotcha.
So that party, getting the deets on the security all the security system, where this is hidden, where that's hidden, where this person's at, where that person's at. Why do you think they're asking for those kind of details to make a party out of it?
Right. Right.
Okay. I'm just trying to
So,
respectfully
uh,
respect the Fed's decisions to do what they were choosing to do, which I and others were being asked to be part of. Not
sure.
trying to put myself on a pedestal at all. It's just at that time that was one serious approach that they were trying to do. So I do know it was had a lot to do with the concerns that were being brought up in that lawsuit. There was a number of things at play, but ultimately there were security leaks that took place that kind of defeated the effectiveness of any such parties. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, totally
Okay.
makes sense. Veronica Bombria, Pete, what's your YouTube channel? Would love to hear your story. Just found you through Jackson.
Hi, Veronica.
You could easily reach me at petejensen.tv. It just reroutes to my YouTube page. So that's that. Okay, from Wacky or Willie Weed. Love to know their responsibility for the Hemet flood of 1980. I mean, that's been covered plenty of times. You
Yeah, and
want to
believe
just
it or not,
give
the
a
church had
quick cliff note?
direct but hidden responsibility for affecting the lives of a lot of livestock and people's lives in the Hemet
Yeah.
San Jacinto Valley, and they got away with it. So,
And I think they mentioned the person who was. I mean, I'm not going to break up his name
yeah,
because
and
number one, I forget it, and
he's no longer with us, unfortunately.
yeah. But yeah, they
Yeah,
took. But it was a selfish move
very
to
selfish.
save the Gilman Hot Springs base over the town of Hemet, right?
Yeah, and they weren't aware. They were short sighted on the effects of their decision,
Right.
but it just
Right.
had disastrous results.
Sure. Okay, moving down. I think we only got like 5 more. So, Jackson, what's your opinion of Liz and Bob? Did he get his mail, in your opinion? Okay, so that's the Liz Ferris. I think I sort of alluded to this earlier.
Up to the time
Um,
that I left in '96, I would believe that he would have. What happened thereafter, things could have been changed up. I know it's like the hole was created after I left.
sure.
Things got a lot more degraded and more controlled. So, what was at one standard at one time may have been changed into another, and I'd like to think Bob did. But up until '96, when I had my hands on those kind of activities, Bob was getting his mail.
Yeah. And at the same time, too, with SBTV getting as large as it is, Liz having a channel basically laying out exactly what she's going to be doing, that could go either one or two ways. I mean, they could be completely understandable of what is going to be sent to them and allow it. Or number two, know this is coming and figure, it's got to be nefarious in some sort. I mean,
Un-
Liz did seem sincere, and I do believe that there was nothing nefarious put in her package. But I think just to spite Liz, that they might have not given it to him, which is the complete wrong thing to do.
well,
And that's
unfortunately,
even. Go
the
ahead.
viewpoint of the church, as I had this clarified when I actually worked there, as I contacted legal and got from them directly, um, uh, the what's on private property is owned by the church. Anything within our fences and our gates is owned by Scientology because they are the property owners. So that gave me the right to legally go inspect people's birthings unannounced, because we were like considered the homeowners, the property owners, and what goes on within these walls. We have the right for free inspection and all that. So that kind of cleared the way for me mentally going, am I doing right or wrong? Because I was
Right.
informed by legal. So that includes anything and everything. To the clothes they're wearing, I could walk up and ask for them to rabbit ears their pants, empty out their pockets. I could go through their desks. I could go through their berthing and go through their car. I can mess with their car. I can do anything and not
Yeah.
be thinking that I'm violating any form of privacy, because there is no basic privacy because we own it and
Mm.
you're on our property. Staff are just considered property, if that makes any freaking wicked sense.
Unfortunately,
Because
it
I
does.
did challenge it. I did question our freedom to be able to do that. And that's what I was instructed, that yes, we do have the freedom when we do not need to tell staff. We have the legal right to do that. So right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what I was informed. And yeah,
All right,
that's not the
Sandy
same question.
Yerkins Powers question is essentially
Hi,
piggybacking
Sandy.
on what was just
Yeah,
asked.
do you think David knows that Liz has been trying to find out? Dave don't give two flying Fs. He may have been informed one way or the other, but it's not on his list of priorities. Guarantee you. Unless it was, I mean, probably as it escalated to the public exposure that it did, he became more and more aware of it and he had his input. But then it died off, just as with any other concern of his, and it allowed him to refocus back on himself. If anything,
Sure.
it was a blip on the radar. And you know, Muriel and Catherine lived another day at their jobs.
All right, here we go. Jackson, how does your nice, caring personality now compare to your security chief responsibility and the demeanor, authority that a person in such a role must exercise? Basically, did you turn it up a little bit for being security chief, or were you always? I mean, obviously, when you were out of Scientology, people reached out to you, and they must have had some sort of inkling that you were a trustworthy guy and a nice individual, or else they would have completely avoided you outside of Scientology. But did you have to put on some sort of act as a chief, as the security chief there?
Well, you know, I guess to say not an intentional act, but make both sides of the coin happy. Um, I remember when Mark Jaeger was decrowned as an international executive and made to work in that swamp building a bamboo encampment,
Right.
that I was the one that set him up doing, but stood there and watched Dave punched in his chest and seeing Mark's eyes bulge out of his head and watch him call everything that breathes sir and just become this victim's victim.
That's the guy that stood outside and he lived in the woods for a while or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's what was once the swamp area is still there, but out by the old
Oh.
Gilman house. But people may have heard about the story of Mark Jaeger working in this self-enclosed encampment that basically it was a working situation that I discovered that I can keep him isolated from the rest of the staff, that made Dave happy, that endured a long-term amount of physical work that Mark could do by himself, and myself and my guards can keep an eye on him. He can be held accountable at any given time, and none of the crew knew where he was. And by default, Mark built that bamboo because there was a few acres of bamboo he cut down by hand just to clear an area out. And he was like, well, I might as well put up a fence with it. So he learned how to build a bamboo fence, and that's what he did. So, can you bring up that question again just to make
It
sure
was
that
basically the same exact question as the last one.
you know, all I can tell you is my core value as I am now. I was then, but I also satisfied both sides of the coin to keep up appearances. I don't remember consciously doing that, but I knew I had to make decisions and do things that more benefited the group than the individual, but I was benefiting in enforcing such things to ultimately help that individual out. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Never once did I ever do what I call a Danny Done It again, which was exercising this evil streak that one has inside them and just cutting one's head off and pissing down their neck, just a grotesque. You've probably heard that, someone getting so upset. I've heard that in a movie, and I'm like, boy, that's a pretty evil dude. Because I had this wake up call once when I was watching the Band of Brothers, to anybody who may have ever watched that movie series.
Love it. Yeah.
But
HBO series.
the final episode, where I don't know if you remember this, but when they were fighting that fight in the woods during the winter, and the captain and lieutenant sent a scout ahead to go scout ahead before they advance forward for any concerns. And I'll never forget seeing the camera zoomed in on that scout's coming into this clearance, seeing through his eyes what he discovered, but the camera didn't turn to what he looked at. that scout turned and ran back. And then the next shot was that captain and lieutenant arriving to where the scout originally did with the same look on their face. And then the camera pans to the right to see what they discovered. And it was a Nazi concentration camp full of prisoners. And I got to tell you, I wasn't even looking for this, but the moment I saw that, I said, that was me. That was me in charge of a modern day Nazi concentration camp. I was like, holy smokers.
Brings it home. Yeah.
It just brought it home to me that's what was at play. That still is what is at play. You know, not literally, but literally. I don't know how else to weld that. That just conceptually portrayed what I felt I was asked to fulfill a duty for and did, thinking I was helping these poor souls, only to discover and realize that I'm not helping them. I'm feeding them into a monster.
Jackson, this may be a little too personal, and you don't have to answer if you don't want. Did you ever do any sort of aftercare therapy or anything to really deal with?
No, I got to
like
tell
that?
you, this has been a single one man band into travel to where I'm at today, all on my own.
Do you find this therapeutic?
Absolutely,
Talking about
and
on
that's.
YouTube?
I got to tell you, I used to have daily, and I'm not talking just nightmares, casual nightmares like, ooh, I saw a monster in my bedroom under the bed.
Sure.
I'm talking soul rattling nightmares of the simple thing being fearful of the consequences of being late to roll call or being accounted for somewhere or non-complying to an instruction or order I was giving.
You don't know. On a lesser level, I have dreams where I have a test coming up and I didn't study for it or something like that. I mean, that's such a lesser level than what things that you've had to deal with. But
yes,
but the things that recur in your mind, it's dreams are a crazy thing, man.
it is.
You know
It's incredible how real they are. They you can't put a specific to them, and they're not scientific,
Yeah.
but they do happen, and every human
And they're
has
so
them. But I got to
lucid.
tell you, they're so elusive. But these are nightmares that would linger on throughout the day. That I literally would be concerned that any minute somebody from the ethics organization, the enforcement side of the organization, can come and hold me accountable, and I got to face the consequences, and I lose my wife, I lose my friends, I lose having real meals, I'm sleeping on the floor. I got to endure this whole level of consequence for something simple.
Sure.
And it wasn't, I mean, those literally went on every day for years. So this from 96 to when did the St. Pete's time thing come out? 2006, 2008, 2009. Literally that same week, my nightmares ended. Now they do randomly happen, but I realized, boy, voicing this stuff really is therapeutic. It really brings, it really releases. It's very therapeutic because I never experienced therapy before, and that's been my success in reconnecting with my friends and confirming that I wasn't crazy.
I think getting the positive affirmation you're receiving from YouTube is definitely beneficial.
Yeah, and then also realizing the power of telling the truth is actually helping people, and that's where my interest turns, is actually helping people. So
that's great. Yep.
Really
is cool.
It doesn't cost me a thing to tell the truth. It costs the church thousands of dollars to try to stop me and my other friends from telling the truth. Surprisingly, from a lot of hard people's handed over energy and donations. So yeah.
FYT says, seeing you in many different interviews gives a pretty nice impression of your character, Jackson. I totally co-sign
well, thank
that.
you. I guess that's I thank you for expressing that, because I got no reason to try to explain to you what makes me up other than I'm just me. And I guess in a self-collaborating way, me as a person has come out through multiple different interviews, and there's consistency behind each one. I know that I maintain it because I don't put any effort in it. It's just me. That's just me.
All right, one more. Jeff and Karen have said last week that the Dave in Crosshairs story is true with a rifle, and you're the source.
Nope, not true. I know the exact story behind that, and I'm not trying to downplay Jeff and Karen, but I will tell you, neither one of them were there.
Mm-hmm.
I know Jeff and Karen would agree with that they weren't there
Sure.
like I was. And
Yeah.
on that day that came up in an interrogation as a result of one of my guards setting the hill on fire.
Uh-huh.
Of course, in such interrogations, the first interest is, does any person have evil intentions towards Dave Miscavige? And
Right.
a lot of probing type questions, a variety of probing type questions to get with the intent to come up with the same answer of, are you trying to kill or harm Dave Miscavige? Or is
Mm-hmm.
there anything that you have done that would be questionable in character? Yada, yada, yadas. And in this gentleman's interrogation, he had stated that, as instructed and as the nature of a guard would do, would be through. We had a spotting scope up at Eagle, so you could basically, it was so good you could read a book from halfway up in that mountain, halfway down. So it allowed my guard to have a very close view of any section of the property that you could see from up there. So while Dave was out traveling around, um, my guard would zoom in and just watch and see everything that was okay. That was it, doing his job. But it was translated that he would be following Dave in the spotting scope. If anybody knows what a spotting scope is,
It
they're
reminds me of
used
the thing I'd use for golf.
for what?
For golf,
Yeah, well, there's that, but there are
like a
also more
rangefinder.
powerful ones that you would use in hunting or for target shooting. For
Okay.
you would see them standing next to guys in the army or military that they would shoot long range targets, and they would use
Makes
a
more.
spotting scope
Yeah.
to zoom in on it. So they were very good tools. So my guard would
Well,
follow around. That was translated when the report landed on Dave's desk as to why my guard set the hill on fire. That he was basically uh, at one time while he was up there following Dave in a set of crosshairs, which I don't know where that came from, in a
I don't know.
basically a spotting scope, and there
Well,
was a rifle up there, which there never was, and that ruined that gentleman's life.
mm. Well,
Um,
great question, Buffy Lynn, and thank you, Jackson, for clearing that one up. 'Cause
yeah, Buffy Lynn, thank
that's
you
not
so
the
much.
best story to have.
Yeah, I don't know how Jeff and Karen translate that, but I don't
Yeah.
default them. We all try to help feed in the voids, but I was the one that walked that walk and talked that talk. And
Hey, 30
it,
years ago plus, you
yeah,
know.
well, it's very real. What doesn't change is the church. Like, to think
Yeah.
a similar scenario hasn't happened since. Dave's always looking for people like that. So any sense that he can come up, someone's trying to kill him or harm him,
All
gives
right, I
him
think we got
reason.
four more questions, and
Sure.
we'll wrap this thing up. This is an easy question.
Hiya,
Linda
Linda
Mack,
Mac.
love to see you, Jackson.
Well, I'd love to see Linda Mac. But thank you for showing up and listening in. Much appreciated.
Anna Reynolds says, question mark, used to think about Depeche Mode to get a floating needle when needed. Did you have a happy place or memory trick like that? I mean, were you
I did.
audited? Were you audited a lot?
No, I
Psych
didn't get.
check audited?
No, Mark, I will tell you this, that I was kind of getting myself prepared for, because when Tom Cruise was set up to come to the property to do his training as an auditor, and Mark was one of his pre-clears, one of his auditors, you probably heard stories of how Mark was being audited by Tom Cruise. Well, my security
Okay.
force was being looked at to be drawn from as one of the lesser trouble-freed individuals that could use some spiritual counseling, and that was basically deserving, quote unquote, to get counseling. And it was a decision that was ultimately brought down between myself, Kevin Catano, and there was another guard, I forget his name, that were presented as potentials, and then Kevin Catano was actually chosen to do it. So, like Mark, I think there was more than just Mark and Kevin. I think there was maybe a couple more people, that Tom Cruise was being used as a pre-clear to learn his auditing and put people through processing. So I never got a chance to do any significant counseling, but when I ultimately did, it was with Marty Rathbun, and
who I heard is the king of sec checking.
yes, sir, he was, and I
Yeah.
received extensive amount of sec checking from him. And yes, because I actively would be planning a blow on how I was going to leave that property, and literally he would come pick me up from my doing my hard labor out in the 110-degree sun, and take me right into counseling 20 minutes later, when I would just come on the heels of counting the seconds it would take for me to run from where I was standing to my security gate opening and closing. I would count 1,000, just do that over and over in my head. So when I would eventually plan my bust my move, if that was my move I was going to make. So yeah, I would think about, I did not care. I had this resolve about me that it wasn't a bad thought to me. So I had recognized that I could choose what was considered bad versus good. That I have, it's like a robber numbed out from the fact of stealing money is not actually bad. You know, if that's any comparison to give you an understanding of what kind of mindset I would get myself into.
Yep.
It wasn't considered a bad deed. So I had no problem walking in and stealing a cash register. You know, it was like no big deal. It's a strange, it was such a conflict in my character, but it was more or less a self-defense, self-preservation effort. And I surprised the hell out of myself because Marty would always ask, did you have any thoughts of blowing today? And I would just happily sit there, no, because I didn't consider it was wrong. And I never got a reaction out of the needle, and I just moved on from it. So that was my success of navigating concerns of it reading on the meter. And even if those readings were considered true, I don't know. Funny thing was, when you think a thought, it showed up and they'd probe you and somehow tie in with whatever you were thinking and pull it from you, you know. But that's how I did it. I didn't think of Scarlett Johansson or skiing on the slopes or, other happy thoughts like that.
Yeah. Scarlett Johansson. I like that. Goes from Scarlett Johansson to skiing on a mountain.
Yeah.
I guess we're both happy.
I hope someone finds some good humor in that, because that's kind of, yeah.
Oh, man. All right, this next question's easy. Jennifer.
Well, thank
Eber.
you, Jennifer.
Love you, Jackson.
That's so kind of you. I just, it's so fascinates the hell of me that that love can actually be found out here for never having ever met anybody here. So, like I said, I'm just
again. I think this was in relation to you being shipped off to Australia.
Yeah, I could have gone to Joburg and have a South African Afrikaans accent. My gosh.
All right. The final question we have here is from Ken's channel.
I know.
If you want to read that, I don't know the name.
Art Coliani, that sounds like a very familiar name.
And Mark
DeCourcy are active pro Scientology on social media. Are they real names? To be honest with you, if anything of these two names rings a bell, it would be Art, especially the last name. But I can't put any specifics to it, so I have no reason. Unfortunately, I can't give you a productive answer.
Hey, we don't know everything.
But
what we do know and what we did find out, I think, was amazing. I think it was great. I think it was a great interview, Jackson. You did great. I mean, you answered everything I brought up. Everything the chatters brought up.
Well, good. As long as
2 hours and 2.5 hours, and it seemed like time flew by.
I know.
Jackson, I really go ahead.
Just respectfully, did we get? I don't intend to create more questions, but I just want to feel respectful of the people's time they spent to come and join us, and that I got the significant answers.
And I'm sure more will join in the replay crew. So shout out to the replay crew.
Yeah, I guess there is that too, on the replay crew.
I'm going to tag Jackson's channel in the description here. It's also being simulcast to Jackson's channel. So go ahead, do him a favor, subscribe to his channel and subscribe to my channel. I'll be doing more interviews now that I got some street cred, maybe with Jackson over here.
anybody
hope.
that's supporting this whole effort has got street cred in my eyes. So,
Well, I hope I didn't make you too uncomfortable, or I hope we had a good time here. I think we did.
I
I
think
really
so. I mean,
appreciate.
I went
I
down an
really
interesting
appreciate you.
path I didn't plan on traveling down to today. So,
Hey, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you've been really busy, and I really appreciate you taking
yeah,
the time out
unfortunately,
today to
my
do this.
life doesn't afford me as much time as other people have, which is not
Yeah.
bad for
No, no, that's
them.
a good
It's
thing.
just I
That's
wish
a
I
good
had the time that others have to afford
thing.
listening people here a lot more
Yeah. Mhm.
opportunity to hear more deets, the receipts, however
Yeah.
you want to put it.
Is there anything you'd like to promote before I play the outro and
No, just
sign this thing?
I thank people for taking the time. I again, if there's one person helped out of all this, that's a good thing, and I hope yeah, just there you have it.
That's it.
Yeah,
Hey, everyone, again, thanks for tuning in. Gary Jackson Moorhead spilled a lot of information. It was a great interview. I encourage you all to watch the replay. Maybe I'll clip a few things and hopefully bring more attention to the interview here. Jackson,
yeah.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the outro.
How
The
many
outro will
viewers did
end
we
just
have at the end of all this?
it's
We,
well, it's going down right now since I'm wrapping up. We're at 51, but we hit a high of 72.
oh, well, good. That's an
Yeah,
interesting. Good. That's cool. That's just neat to know.
yeah.
Okay,
So I'm gonna play the outro. If you could just hang out for 1 to 2 minutes
sure.
after I end the stream. All
Okay,
right.
bye
Thanks
everybody.
again
Thanks for
for
hanging out.
everyone. Bye bye. Take care. Thank you for joining.